Hi, I'm Robin, one of the tech experts here to help you at Curry's PC World. I'm not just a voice on the radio. You can now come into your local store and talk tech with a human being like me. Just the news you needed this afternoon. We've put all the right measures in place to help you again safely in your local Staples Corner store. The tech experts are back in town. So come in and see if that washing machine can handle all that laundry. And welcome back to your local Curry's PC World.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Monday afternoon by the scruff of the neck. Ignore this gloomy weather and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished, with over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
The big Volkswagen event is now on. If you're after a new Volkswagen, we offer to pay your first 3 months finance payments and an additional £500 to £1,000 contribution to your deposit at 3.8% APR representative. Hello, sir. Do any take your fancy?
Well, yes, a new Golf or T-Cross. A Tiguan. No, Passat. Oh, I need to sit down.
Here, have a seat.
The big Volkswagen event. With every type of car on offer, you may have trouble choosing. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan until 12th of July, excludes e-Golf at participating retailers only. Minimum 46 months to receive 3 months finance payments. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Finance. Contact your local retailer to book an appointment.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Great half hour coming up. We're going to be speaking with Michael Sonnenfeld of Tiger 21 on how the ultra wealthy are reacting to the coronavirus. And we'll have a conversation with Neil Ferguson of the Hoover Institution, a noted historian, on how China has already declared Cold War. First, let's get a Bloomberg Business Flash from John Tucker.
And we have green on the screen. It is a rally that continues. Stocks jumping, tech shares leading the way. A huge rally in Chinese markets that pushed a global equity benchmark toward a 1-month high. The dollar right now falling for a fifth day. Treasuries dipping just a bit. Amazon and Tesla among the best performers. Uber Technologies, that's also surging after the company agreed to buy Postmates, all helping push the NASDAQ to a record. Did get some economic news, a gauge of U.S. service industries. Now, this is the biggest part of the U.S. economy. That jumped to a 4-month high in the month of June. It also showed the resumption of growth as the economy reopened more broadly from pandemic-induced lockdowns. The ISM said its non-manufacturing index soared to 57.1 last month. Readings above 50 indicate growth. Well, it's not all optimism. Catherine Mann at Citigroup Global Markets says when it comes to the U.S. labor market, she is waiting for the other shoe to drop.
thinking about how are firms planning on weathering the next half of the year in order to survive into 2021. They're going to do that by cutting.
Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 300 points, a rise of 1.2%. We're at 26,125. The S&P 500, 41 points higher. That's a rise of 1.3% at 3171. The Nasdaq Composite Index up 200 points, up almost 2%. We're at 10,407. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Bonnie Quinn on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, for many investors in this market, given the volatility, they are simply trying to preserve wealth as best they can. And that includes some of the ultra wealthy as well. Michael Sonnenfeld, he's a chairman and founder of Tiger 21. And Tiger 21 is really a unique organization. It's a peer membership organization for high net worth wealth creators and preservers. So Michael gets a really interesting viewpoint there from his members. And he joins us now. Michael Sonnenfeld, thanks so much for joining us once again. Again, I guess since the last time we talked to you, we've had just this tremendous pandemic sweep the world, creating a tremendous amount of economic, uncertainty. How are your members viewing the world today, and how are they positioning their portfolios?
Great. Thanks for having me, Paul. Our members have been weathering the storm, and that's how they think about it. Our members are primarily, not exclusively, first-generation wealth creators and mostly entrepreneurs, investors, and executives. So these are the people who've had to create wealth over an entire generation, and they've been through different storms. This is certainly unique, but they've been doing two things. Always looking for opportunities very selectively. It's not business as usual. The way we say it is our window for business is open. Individuals say this. Our window for business is open, but the bar is much higher. But also we've been raising cash because right now everything seems very rosy. It's not just today's ebullient market. The last couple of weeks the market has been coming back. But members aren't convinced that it's a one-way street. You could have some rough times coming up later this year when PPP runs out. And obviously the pandemic has hit different businesses quite differently. If you're a retailer, you're thinking very differently than if you're a tech company that's doing extremely well.
Yeah, the PPP reopened today. The new deadline to apply is August 8th, so a few more weeks for people to apply. Michael, any idea how much wealth was destroyed by the pandemic? Well,
most of our members, because they have a low exposure to the public markets, only about 21%, are in the around breaking even. If you were a high-tech investor, the NASDAQ is ahead for the year, quite amazingly. So we have members who, if they have well-diversified portfolios, have losses in the single digits, but just like the average of a man and a horse is 3 legs, some of our members have done extremely well, and others are learning from them how they were positioned to do so well and thinking about how to be protective on the downside. So it's across the board, but generally it's probably a break even to just down 1 or 2 or 3 points at this point.
So, Michael, it's interesting. On the M&A front, just over the last 24 hours, we saw famed value investor Warren Buffett make a $10 billion acquisition of some liquefied natural gas assets, some pipelines, suggesting to a lot of investors that maybe he sees the bottom in that particular subset of the market. Are your members, are they saying, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this market, meltdown that we've seen, even despite the partial comeback we've had, that's maybe an opportunity to really bottom fish in certain sectors?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think what's made our members a unique cohort is the fact that they can roll up their shirt sleeves and shuck and jive, if you will, to opportunities. And so they've kind of had a twist in their portfolio. On the one hand, they've bolstered their cash. We recognize over the last 10 years through our asset allocation how members are diversifying their portfolio, and cash has been around 12%. Well, in the last 3 months, cash has grown to 18%. It's a dramatic change, call it a flight to safety. But what that really means is members are building resources to pounce on opportunities. I know in 91, when the real estate market was down, I bought a portfolio for 20 cents on the dollar that tripled in value over the next few years. And these kind of opportunities only occur in times like this. So you have to both have the security to know that you can weather the storm, but that allows you to be on the lookout for unique opportunities. And I would say that balance, that twist, if you will, more security and working really hard to find opportunities characterizes a good number of our members.
Very briefly, Michael, what's the relationship to real estate? How has it changed? 20 seconds?
Yeah, well, real estate is our biggest allocation, about 28% of our assets, and today we have about $80 billion, and we don't manage money. It's our members individual managing, over 790 members. Real estate is the story of the pandemic. If you're in the retail area or the hotel area, it's been a heap of trouble. But industrial real estate has done amazingly well. And just as you were asking me, pouncing on opportunities, obviously, if you were diversified well,
yes,
even if you were in the real estate in retail, you hopefully have other assets now, and now there are opportunities to look at. So we have members looking at shopping malls
yes,
and hotel chains to see where the opportunities are, because there's going to be great opportunities there.
Michael, we will check back in with you on that. Michael Sonnenfeld, Chairman and Founder of Tiger 21. Now let's get to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. and Nathan Hager.
Bonnie, thank you. So-called faithless electors may no longer be allowed under a decision from the United States Supreme Court. In a unanimous ruling, the justices found states may require their members of the Electoral College to vote for the presidential candidate who wins the popular vote. They rejected an argument that the Constitution allows electors to vote as they please. In another decision this morning, the High Court may have cut off another avenue of campaign activity ahead of the 2020 election, upholding the national ban on robocalls to cell phones and getting rid of an exception to that ban for calls aimed at collecting debt to the federal government. The White House says President Trump is aware of spikes in coronavirus cases and is, in the words of Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, on it. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows says the president is focused on the next round of stimulus.
I think the president's been very clear that he's supportive of another stimulus check, and yet at the same time we want to make sure that we're addressing things in a real systemic way.
Just now, Florida reported a 3.2% increase in daily coronavirus infections. That is well below the previous 7-day average of 5.1%. The president's support appears to be slipping in coronavirus hotspots.
There's been recent polling indicating a large drop-off in support for the president, both in terms of his approval ratings and also in terms of the approval specifically of his handling of the coronavirus.
That's Bloomberg's Kathleen Hunter. The president has responded to his slipping polls with appeals to his base, trying to tie Joe Biden to what he calls the radical left. In a pair of speeches over the weekend, the Biden campaign put out a memo saying those efforts are falling laughably flat. Global news on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
President of the Jewish Communal Fund, Zoya Raines, and her husband Robert Friedman, Jewish activists and philanthropists, talk about why they chose the Jewish Communal Fund for their charitable giving.
As very busy working parents, we wanted to focus more on the charity part of it and wanted to focus more on our children and less on the administration.
The Jewish Communal Fund is one of the oldest and largest donor-advised funds, but at the same time, they're totally up to date and have state-of-the-art systems for us to access and manage our contributions online. The assets in our fund at the JCF grow tax-free, so we can generate more charitable dollars to support the charities that we care about most.
Let JCF minimize your taxes and maximize your charitable giving.
We're incredibly passionate about our charity, and the JCF allows us to focus more on the charity and less on the administration and the headaches.
For more information about Jewish Communal Fund, visit our website at jcfny.org and request a new fund kit.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
The best of...
Prepare your child for the world ahead with Blundell's School, Devon, an independent day and boarding school for 3 to 18-year-olds.
Every day is a different adventure.
Set in 100 idyllic acres amid the rolling hills of Devon, Blundell's can be a crucial part of the equation if you're considering a move to the southwest.
We looked at schools right away across from Salisbury, and Blundell's punches well above its weight. Exeter down the road.
We're proud to offer an outstanding, quality education, less than 2 hours by direct train to central London.
The happy teachers bring the lessons to life.
Blundell's, one of Devon and Cornwall's most prestigious schools for more than 400 years. Rated excellent by the ISI. Learn more at blundels.org.
When your tenants have a blown fuse box right in the middle of your busy day, superheroes crashing through the wall isn't going to help anyone. With Direct Line Landlord Emergency added to your policy, we're on it to send a rather super electrician in 4 hours before you've even sat down to dinner. We can also assemble plumbers, locksmiths, glaziers and drainage engineers. Search Direct Line Landlord Emergency. We're on it. Direct Line. Residential properties. Optional add-on up to $1,500 per call-out. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details visit costa.co.uk/terms.
Ever wondered how people's postcode lottery works? Easy. Your postcode is your ticket. And every weekday it gives you the chance to win £1,000 or £30,000 every weekend. And every month players in your postcode could win a share of £3 million. Join in at postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of July to play in the August draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
Are you ready to play?
This summer, ITV Hub is fully loaded with loads more full series.
Gonna get messy.
Yeah, like it's fuller than ever. From Love Island to Layer, we have divas lined up back to back.
Filmy and Sister.
From the GC and the Ibiza Weekend reps to the Real Housewives, it's round full of lots and lots of...
This is getting too much now.
Laughs, tears and smiles. It's crammed full with full series like Wiz, Flesh and Blood, Harry's Heroes and Manx in Mumbai. We've grown, expanded and just gone a bit extra this summer.
Give me some more.
ITV Hub fully loaded this summer.
The best experience possible.
Did we mention it's looking fuller than ever?
When you're buying tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al, or Sean, or Luth, or Ange, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hi, it's Ali. What are you searching for?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
At Simply Be, we've stepped up our sales so that you can step out in style. With up to 80% off summer clothing, you'll find some seriously must-have fashion at prices that are simply too good to miss. So go on, skip those weekend queues and treat yourself to something gorgeous. Shop the sale at simplybe.co.uk.
You always say the best thing you ever did was join up. I bet you don't get the same experiences in Civvy Street, especially the expats. And that feeling of pride. Lots of people are rejoining now. It's easy, and we'd love to have you back. Go on, feel the pride again. Search RAF Rejoiners.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. But today's stock rally continues, being led by tech shares. The NASDAQ Composite Index has powered to a record. And from its March 23rd low, the NASDAQ is now up 52%. Shares of Amazon have now topped $3,000 a share. Of the 11 industry groups in the broader market, the S&P 500, only utilities are lower right now. The MSCI World Index is now at the highest level since early June, with investors putting their faith in economic recovery powered by historic government stimulus. Well, Goldman Sachs has actually cut its estimates for U.S. economic growth this quarter. It also says consumer spending in the U.S. appears likely to stall this month and next. The Dow Jones Industrial Average right now is up 374 points. That's a rise of 1.4%. We're at 26,196. The S&P 500 is up 46 points. That's up 1.5% at 3176. The NASDAQ Composite Index, again, at a record of 213 points, a 2% rise right now at 10,421. And we check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Well, we are broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, and it is time for Bloomberg Opinion at 10:49 on Wall Street. It's time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion columnist, author of a biography of Henry Kissinger, author of Civilization, the West and the Rest, and of course senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford. Neil Ferguson is very welcome to the programme. Neil, you're the man who coined the word chimerica, and you say in one of your latest columns that you agree with Henry Kissinger that we've seen the opening gambit in a Cold War II, this between the US and China. How did relations between Beijing and Washington sour so badly? We're going to get Neil back in just a moment, but essentially what he's saying is that this is going to be a long time getting worked out. And in fact, it's a lot more serious when you have the person who was responsible really for any kind of détente between China and the US, that being Henry Kissinger, saying that we're in another Cold War. You have to sit up and take notice.
Yeah, when we talk to people like Neil and some others, the China experts, they say, it's not just President Trump here with the tough rhetoric. The Chinese President Xi, also in a political position there where, the feeling in China is they perhaps need to take a tougher stance with not just the U.S. but the West in general. So, it seems like there's enough issues on both sides to create kind of where we are here, which is increased trade tensions, increased negative rhetoric, and it's tough to see how you find your way out of it, at least in the near term here. But clearly it's an issue for global trade, and we've seen that really, over the last year, which is maybe taking a little bit of a backseat, obviously, to the pandemic, Vonnie, but still global trade is a big issue as well.
Exactly, and certainly a very different outlook from the current president of China than, say, the likes of Hu Jintao. So Neil joins us now. And Neil, we were just saying that, you coined chimerica, and really it's not at all a nice fusion these days. In fact, what it is a Cold War II. How did things get so bad suddenly?
Well, it's a great question. I was one of the people who came up with chimerica back in 2007, along with Moritz Schulrich, but we always said it wouldn't last. In fact, the word chimerica was a pun on the word chimera. The only question was when things would unravel. I thought it would be around the financial crisis, but that didn't happen. I think the real turning point has been Xi Jinping's increasingly assertive foreign policy. And I see the presidency of Donald Trump as in some measure just a reaction to that, because it kind of the penny dropped with ordinary Americans that China was getting most of the benefits of chimerica. And finally, someone came along from outside the political class and articulated that concern, and that somebody was Donald Trump.
All right. So, Neil, from your perspective, what do you think China's strategy is here?
Well, I think there's obviously a priority on righting the economic ship, and I think one has to recognize that the principal concern for Xi Jinping is actually making sure that the Chinese economy weathers the storm of COVID-19. But meanwhile, I think the subplot is asserting China's power not only regionally but globally in a whole range of different ways, ranging from the One Belt, One Road initiative, which is very much Xi Jinping's brainchild, to more conventional assertions of power in the South China Sea and with respect to Taiwan, and then fighting the tech war, which I think is really key here. Sometimes people forget that the tech war over the future of Huawei and its role in global 5G networks is more important than the trade war that Donald Trump launched in early 2018. And I think from a Chinese vantage point, it's a very major concern.
Okay, I'm placing, and it's already executed. I opened position for euro at 113.23.5. So I opened short position on euro at 113.235. Okay.
And Trump was in some ways a reaction to that.
And in fact, Neil, what you're saying brings up the question of whether Xi Jinping is actually committed to market reform to the extent that predecessors were. Is he willing to give up some free market, developments, if you like, in order to return his community to sort of a more communist community?
Well, Bonnie, I think it's crucial to realize that Xi Jinping has quite consciously shifted away from policies of economic liberalization, and that one of the signatures of his time as General Secretary of the Communist Party has been an increase in the power of the state-owned enterprises. And also, I think perhaps just as importantly, a real tightening ideologically, which is very obvious in Chinese universities. I'm a visiting professor at Tsinghua, but I've seen the atmosphere change from one of relative openness to one in which people are losing their jobs or indeed being subjected to arrest for essentially lecturing on the realities of Chinese history and expressing criticism of this new ideological tightening. I do think there's one qualification, though. One way that the Chinese are trying to counter Trump is by appealing to Wall Street and saying, yeah, we may be communists, but come on in to our financial markets and we'll make it easier for you to come in. Not to get out, of course, because China still has capital controls. But I think one of the interesting subplots here is the way in which Beijing is pitching to Wall Street. And that's a pitch that's getting quite a warm reception from companies ranging from JP Morgan to the big credit card companies. That's an exception, though. The basic trend is for a reimposition of the party's control and a shift away from the more liberal era when we used to talk about ultimately the renminbi being a convertible currency. I think that's all forgotten now.
Neil, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your thoughts on this important and evolving topic. Neil Ferguson, he's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. He's also a Bloomberg opinion columnist, talking to us about kind of the communist government in China, Vani, trying to reassert some control over what had been a moderately liberalizing economy. You think about some of the, the big tech companies that have come, to power and have grown so big, whether it's an Alibaba or a Tencent. You wonder what role those companies might have in kind of the evolution within China.
Yeah, or what role they will be allowed to have in some ways, Paul. I'm sure that even their role is being very much watched by the leadership in China. But of course, it is fascinating, particularly on a day when you see the powers that be in China stoke the stock market rally, the Shanghai Composite Index up 5.7% overnight.
Yeah, and that translates here, Bonnie, to the U.S. markets having a strong morning of trading with the S&P 500 up 1.5%, the Dow up 1.4%. This is Bloomberg.
Business. Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Go on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are
ploughing on, boxing up goods and rolling them out, shipping kettles,
instruments to kids,
art for walls,
treats to pets, shorts for sunny weekends,
to brighten up one British home at a time.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay. If you want to find out what the best smart tech is to keep an eye on your front door whilst you're out on your lunchtime run, you could ask a machine, or someone called Mac, or Miguel, or Haley, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
What would the world be like if we listened more? At Honda, our ears are always open to new ideas. Oh, there's one now, knocking on our eardrum.
Okay, stop on profit for Euro USD at 113.21.5. I'm placing stop on profit for Euro USD at 113.21.5. Okay.
Quick take. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney.
Will technology lead us out of this crisis?
We don't know how many companies can accept people back on their roster.
The Fed seems to have really flexed its muscles.
There's still a coronavirus risk.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
To wring out that buy the dip mentality, that takes time.
Are we looking at a more damaging break in the labor market? Does the shape of the yield curve matter? We're looking at late 2021, early 2022, where it really feels quote-unquote normal.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
This hour, we're going to be looking at what responsibilities employers have to protect their employees from coronavirus. We'll also be speaking with Julie Pearl, CEO of Pearl Law Group, on the ramifications of Trump's executive order suspending some visas for foreign-born talent. First, let's get a news update now, a Bloomberg Business Flash even, from John Tucker.
And we have a risk-on rally today, and it's being led by technology shares. Well, the S&P 500, let's start there, heading toward its fifth straight increase. The NASDAQ at a record. You have high-flying tech names like Amazon.com and Tesla among the best performers. In fact, Amazon touched $3,000 a share just a little earlier, just hovering around that range right now. Uber Technologies surging after the company agreed to buy Postmates. That's a $2.65 billion all-stock deal. And in Europe, the stock 600, that climbed more than 1%, while developing nation stocks, they added more than 2%. Michael Hewson, CMC Markets chief market analyst, says several things will push equity markets even higher from here.
The prospect that we could get another U.S. fiscal stimulus as well, particularly given that we are seeing these rises in coronavirus cases, I think it's probably more or less inevitable that we'll get one. And ultimately, the economic data is continuing to improve. So you've got two factors, I think, helping.
And of the 11 industry groups in the S&P 500, there's only one in the red, utility sector. That is lower. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 362 points. That's a rise of 1.4%. We're at 26,188. The S&P 500 is up 47 points, a rise of 1.5%. We're at 3176. And the NASDAQ Composite Index, 2.2% higher, up 223 points at a record 10,431. As we check treasuries right now, the 10-year yield 0.70%, the 2-year at 0.16%. And Brent crude up 50 cents at $43.30 a barrel. And we check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues with Paul and Bonnie.
John Tucker, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. Green on the screen, as John was just reporting. Let's get a sense of what's going on in the world of small and mid-cap stocks. We can do that with Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at?
Well, smaller companies not quite as green as larger ones at the moment. The Russell 2000 index up 1.2%, and the S&P 500 is higher by 1.5%. That said, the Russell's biggest gain belongs to Waiter Holdings, whose ticker is WTRH. The food delivery service has risen almost 20%. Preliminary second quarter results showed an unexpected profit as sales beat analysts' average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Seneca Foods, ticker SENEA, has climbed almost 11%. The fruit and vegetable processor made money in the fiscal fourth quarter as sales climbed 17% from a year ago. And Nautilus, ticker NLS, has advanced almost 9%. The exercise equipment maker said late last week it's seeking a buyer for its Octane fitness unit, which makes elliptical machines. Nautilus wanted to focus on the home equipment market. One of the Russell's steepest declines belongs to Applied Therapeutics, ticker APLT. The drug developer down 9.5% after saying a report last week by short-selling research firm Biotech Research Partners was fraudulent. And 89 Bio, ticker ETNB, is down 8.7%. The drug developer plans to sell 2.2 million shares. That works out to a 14% stake.
Always such interesting stories going on in the small cap universe. Dave Wilson, thank you. That is Dave Wilson, N.I. Wilson. Let's take a look at the broader markets now, cross-asset, and bring in Elena Popina of Bloomberg News, who's been following all of the action overnight and into today. Elena, we clearly have a nice rally here in the United States. Once again, this market just doesn't know which other direction to go except higher. The Nasdaq up 2.25%. We had the Shanghai Composite up 5.7% overnight. Are there asset classes suffering as a result of this today?
Well, it's all green, Bonnie, today, and we can thank China for that green. Obviously, technology stocks, as Dave mentioned earlier, are the bigger gainers. Today, we're seeing the green in Amazon, we're seeing the green in Uber Technologies. That sector, technology stocks, have been propelling the market all the way since the market trough in late March. So we can say that as long as that sector remains high in the green, as long as it remains healthy, other laggards, the sectors that haven't been performing that well, can keep outperforming just because a rising tide lifts all boats. So that is clearly what we have been seeing with that, with a clear risk on session today, the fifth day of advance for the S&P 500.
So, Elena, one thing we're clearly noting in this market move up is the complete lack of breadth, if you will. It's really being driven by a handful of stocks, some of the big tech stocks that we all know. Amazon over $3,000 a share today. How concerned are market professionals about the relative lack of breadth for this advance?
They were concerned back in February when the S&P hit its last all-time high on February 19th. What they say right now is they don't care too much about valuation, and these stocks are very expensive on the price-to-earnings basis. As long as these stocks can show growth and have very clean balance sheets and very clean momentum. So that's all the market seems to be carrying right now. We have a lot of companies that are deeply in debt. We have a lot of companies that have troubled finances. So as long as we know that the market has this handful of stocks that they can rely on, and these stocks, mind you, are very crowded at this point, but that gives the market some confidence that there are some sectors of the market that can help the broader economy. It can help the broader recovery. Well, that is to say that the markets don't look at the COVID stats right now, and the markets are overlooking it. So we may see another negative headline tomorrow or later in the week, and we can have a risk-off sentiment. Now that you're right in saying that there is a lot of concern that technology stocks and the S&P 500 are rallying a little bit too far, too much for all the negative stats that we're seeing regarding the coronavirus cases.
Elena, where is the money coming from? Is it from the sidelines or from some other asset class?
It's a great point, Bonnie. We had some stats from Morgan Stanley, I believe, last week that said that, fund managers, professional investors still have near record cash positions. So they did put some cash into the market in the second quarter, but they still have some money to spend. So, they are catching up with the broader market. They are just, being a little bit late to the game at this point after the S&P's advance since late March. But yes, that's professional fund managers and hedge funds that were, net short the S&P for a number of consecutive weeks until last week when they covered that short position to a large extent. So it seems that for now, a lot of professional investors are just deciding to put the money into the stock market with the advance that we're seeing.
Elena, thanks so much for joining us, giving that overview of the equity markets. Elena Popina, she is equity markets reporter for Bloomberg News, joining us. And again, Vani, another green day on the screen. And as Elena mentioned, I like how she put it, kind of the market's overlooking or looking past some of these negative metrics we're seeing on the virus, where, of course, back in March and April, that was front and center.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, right now, because we're getting positive headlines on reopenings, New York going into phase 3 and so on, it seems like that is definitely helping things. But phase 3 is not phase 3 of 3 weeks ago. We don't have indoor dining. We just have, some more small businesses opening with very strict conditions attached.
Right, and you think about some of these big economies in Southern California and Texas and Florida really having some problems with their reopenings. The question is, how will that impact some of the metrics and economic data going forward? We'll find out. Right now, let's head down to Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan, what do you have for us?
Well, Paul, coronavirus cases do continue to climb in the Sun Belt, though Florida just reported a 3.2% increase in infections. That is below the previous 7-day average of 5.1%. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows is trying to clarify President Trump's recent contention that 99% of cases are totally harmless.
If you look at the vast majority of those from 65 years of age and younger, if they don't have a comorbidity, we're looking at this as not only not as dangerous as a number of other things that could potentially cause a loss of life.
Earlier, Meadows told Fox News there's no need for a nationwide mask mandate. He says the president sees it as a state-by-state issue. Meantime, President Trump is suggesting an incident that led to change at NASCAR was a hoax. In a tweet, the president asked whether Bubba Wallace, the only black driver on the circuit, has apologized after a rope tied as a noose was found at his Talladega garage. The president suggested that and the decision to ban the Confederate flag at races have led to a ratings decline for NASCAR. The latest racially charged statement from the president after more than a month of protest across the country. Police in Atlanta have put out a $10,000 reward for 2 suspects in the killing of an 8-year-old girl near the Wendy's, where a white police officer shot and killed a black man last month. Sequoia Turner was killed after armed protesters shot into her car as she and her mother tried to drive onto an illegally blocked parking lot. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms.
This random wild, wild west shoot 'em up because you can, it's gotta stop.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Coronavirus proved that every aspect of our lives, from business to health, is connected to Asia.
Healthcare firms testing the appetite for IPOs in Hong Kong too.
But you already knew that.
COVID-19 certainly had an impact on this.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern.
What does that mean for Asia if the dollar remains on the back foot for the foreseeable future?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
COVID-19. On days when it seems there are nothing but questions.
What about the pandemic emergency purchase program in Europe?
What's the medical side of this?
We try to ask good ones.
How long until we have an answer on what drugs can help us fight this pandemic?
How do you think this has the potential to rattle markets?
Does that mean we should shut down?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
It's a rather controversial question being asked.
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
If knowledge is power...
Hey, I'm Robin, one of the tech experts, here to help you at Curry's PC World. I'm not just a voice on the radio. You can now come into your local store and talk tech with a human being like me. Just the news you needed this afternoon. We've put all the right measures in place to help you again safely in your local Staples Corner store. The tech experts are back in town. So come in and see if that washing machine can handle all that laundry. And welcome back to your local Curry's PC World.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Go on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Unpredictability.
Moving stop on profit for euro to 113.5. Another £1,000 profit if it will reach this level, if it will go up. Okay? So stop on profit from 113.23.5 to 113.13.5.
One safe? TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. Home alone or with housemates, stay home as much as possible. Try to allow only people you live with into your home. Wash your hands. If you're sick, stay home and isolate from housemates. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
How do you keep track of all your favorite stations and podcasts? Easy. You add them to your favorites list. Just find the audio you want to bookmark and tap the heart icon. Then, whenever you want to browse your favorites, you'll find everything under the Favorites tab.
Staying current on college hoops starts here. On the Eye on College Basketball podcast, CBS sports columnists Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander bring you commentary, insider information, and statistical analysis covering the entire NCAA.
The amount of earning potential you could have had there, or if you had gone to play at any other place with a chance to play in the NCAA tournament, win a national championship, none of us would have faulted Cunningham for doing that, but he decided this is where he wants to be in the face of a postseason.
Search Eye on College Basketball on TuneIn to listen.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up and do Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick 6 podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brinson's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards. That's how you wind up.
Search Pick 6 on TuneIn to listen.
Today at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. U.S. stocks jumping today. Tech shares, they're leading the way. The NASDAQ Composite Index rising to a record. You have the high-flying tech names like Amazon.com, Tesla among the best performers, and Uber is surging after the company agreed to buy Postmates. We have Amazon.com shares topping 3,000 right now, up over 4.3% for the first time. This extends a rally that's left most of the analysts who cover Amazon.com kind of in the dust. Shares of the e-commerce giant climbing, again, 4.41%. So that brings gains so far this year to 63%. Well, don't fight the Fed, and the trend is your friend. Alicia Levine, chief strategist at BNY Mellon Investment Management, says she's telling clients to stay in the stock market amid stimulus measures from the Federal Reserve as well as the U.S. government. Right now, we have the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 373 points. That's a rise of 1.5%. We're at 26,201. The S&P 500 is up 49 points. That's a rise of 1.6%. Its fifth straight increase, 3179 right now for the index. And the NASDAQ at a record. NASDAQ Composite Index up 240 points, a rise of 2.3%. We're at 10,447. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Bonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, as U.S. employers continue to reopen their businesses and the economy overall, one of the key questions being asked is, to what degree are employers responsible for maintaining a healthy and safe work environment? To get some answers, we welcome Emma Court. She's a healthcare reporter for Bloomberg News. Emma, thanks so much for joining us here. Give us a sense of maybe the whole paradigm of what we're seeing as businesses open up. What are they doing to ensure the health and safety of their employees coming back?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Workplace safety has become, a really kind of new and different paradigm today, right, as employers. Some of them have been, operating throughout the pandemic. Some of them are starting to push to return to work, for the first time, pushing, maybe smaller cohorts of employees at the beginning. And as part of that, we're seeing a lot of different measures being deployed. We've been talking about temperature screenings for a long time. Symptom checkers, which means, maybe your employer sends you a list of 4 questions you have to answer before you come into the office. Do you have symptoms, things like that? Have you been in high-risk situations, like a big group of people or an event indoors, things like that? Masks at work, even physical barriers like plexiglass, for instance, hand sanitizer everywhere. But interestingly, testing, which has become such a first-line mechanism of ensuring public health in the community, it's sort of our only option absent a vaccine in terms of ensuring this virus doesn't, spread really rapidly from person to person. That has actually been a really small element of employers back to work pushes, and there are a variety of reasons for that. But a big one is cost and the sort of crucial limitations of how these tests can be deployed. You can't really test someone and say, okay, you're all clear and we don't have to worry about you anymore getting sick. That's not how these tests work. The diagnostic tests that we have right now say, at this moment in time when you were tested, you do not have COVID-19. There's also an issue of false negatives. But mainly there's an issue of what if you leave the testing site and you go into the parking lot and you get sick? How helpful is the test then? So these are things that employers are really kind of wrestling with as they think about whether to have employees at work and what kinds of mechanisms to have in place there.
What are employers responsible for and who is regulating that? Is it the unions? Is there anything in federal government suggestions?
Yeah, Yeah, there's been a variety of recommendations in terms of how to, return to work. And it sort of depends on where you look. Everyone has sort of a booklet of recommendations or requirements in some cases. Local governments, state governments, the CDC has recommendations. EEOC has put out recommendations, even specifically on testing, saying you can use diagnostic testing, but there are other kinds of testing. You can't make a requirement to go back to work. So it depends on the industry and where you are and things like that. But it does present a sort of patchwork of requirements and recommendations depending on where you are. And, of course, local conditions factor into this a lot, too, right? I'm here in New York where, obviously was a very big hotspot, earlier in the pandemic. And now, perhaps more people are returning to work, whereas other parts of the country, the situation in terms of COVID-19 is very different.
So, Emma, to what extent do we know kind of the liability businesses may have from employees saying you're suing them and because you brought me back into a unsafe work environment?
Yeah, it's a really interesting and important question, and one that's sort of still being figured out right now. I mean, with regards to testing specifically, we've seen a union that represents employees in casinos in Vegas sue certain casinos, saying you need to make, testing a part of the return to work strategy. Like this has to be a mandatory part of this push. But we've also seen, a lot of lawsuits being filed over. This is something that's probably going to be litigated for a long time. And it's unclear, a big question that comes up around that is, can you prove that you got coronavirus, you got COVID-19 at work? And it's not clear how well anyone would be able to prove that. I mean, it depends on what the bar is, how the bar is set by courts.
What will be the test case? Is there a test case out there yet, or do we have to wait and see for a few more months?
I think this is going to take a while to settle. Many employers, especially large employers that operate in many jurisdictions, are still wrestling with these issues. And I think we are also going to see standards evolve and change as testing technology gets better, for instance, as people set standards for different industries. A lot of employers that operate in places around the country have tried to, because they're facing this sort of patchwork of different requirements and guidance, have tried to make, meet sort of the highest standards, right? It's because it's easier if you're operating in multiple jurisdictions. But, the bar may be lower for, small businesses or other kinds of players. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these things shake out and to see if employers go out there and say, we are setting the highest possible standards for our workplace, maybe become a big incentive for employees to want to work there.
Exactly. It's going to be fascinating. I mean, will countries even be suing other countries if travelers brought it in? Our thanks to Emma Court, healthcare reporter for Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are rising as traders return to their desks from the holiday weekend. The bulls in control, betting the worst of the pandemic could be behind us. The Dow rising more than 350 points. A gauge of service industries from the Institute for Supply Management jumped to a 4-month high in June. It showed the resumption of growth as the economy reopened more broadly from pandemic-induced lockdowns. The rebound at service providers follows a similar jump in the group's manufacturing index. Shares of Tesla rising after 3 analysts lifted the electric car maker's price target. Last week, Tesla reported a sequential gain in quarterly deliveries. And Lucky Brand Jeans has filed for bankruptcy. The closely held company has entered into an asset purchase agreement with Spark Group, which operates brands including Aeropostale and Nautica. Brand manager Authentic Brands will acquire Lucky's intellectual property. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Are Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. With COVID-19,
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rocked that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
And action!
I was offered one.
Cut. That's not on the script. I was offered one. Get you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was offered one.
Come, boy. I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished. With over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to a computer or to someone called Colin, or Sean, or Luth, or Ange, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
What would the world be like if we listened more? At Honda, our ears are always open to new ideas. Oh, there's one now, knocking on our eardrum. What's that? What if we made a car with cameras instead of wing mirrors? A robot mower that knows when it's time to cut the grass. A self-balancing motorcycle. And what if by 2022, all of our mainstream cars were hybrid or electric? Great idea. Thanks, ears. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to speak with Julie Pearl. She's the CEO of immigration law firm Pearl Law on why Trump's visa ban could be bad news for the U.S. economy. Plus, we're going to take a look at the Berkshire Hathaway deal, Warren Buffett getting back into the game, buying energy assets. We'll dig deep on that deal. But first, let's go to John Tucker, Bloomberg News, for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
And Paul, good morning. No end in sight to this rally. Stimulus from the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government continues to power stocks higher. The NASDAQ Composite Index at a record. Amazon.com shares topping 3,000 for the first time. It's been 15 weeks since the S&P 500 hit its low. It's now 42% from March 23rd. A couple of pandemic-related headlines from Florida and Arizona may also be giving a boost to risk assets. Virus cases in Florida and Arizona recording increases below their 7-day average. Shares of Tesla rising as much as 6% after 3 analysts lifted the electric car maker's price target. The boost comes after the company delivered more Model 3 and Y vehicles in the second quarter than expected. It's not all optimism out there. At Citigroup Markets, Catherine Mann says she's waiting for the other shoe to drop in the U.S. labor market.
Thinking about how are firms planning on weathering the next half of the year in order to survive into 2021. They're going to do that by cutting.
Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 357 points. That's a rise of 1.4%. We're at 26,184. S&P 500 at 49 points. That's up 1.6% at 3179, a record there. The NASDAQ Composite Index, I should say, is at the record, up 244 points, a rise of 2.4% at 10,452. Right now, we have the 10-year Treasury yield below 0.7% at 0.695. And we had Brent crude up 68 cents at $43.48 a barrel. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Vonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Chief Staff Mark Meadows saying President Trump will issue executive orders on many things in the near future, including immigration. But we already know that President Trump has issued an executive order suspending H-1B and L-1 and other temporary visas for highly skilled foreign-born, often U.S. educated, it should be said, talent. Let's bring in somebody who knows a lot about this. Julie Pearl is CEO of Pearl Law Group in San Francisco. Julie, have we seen any material impact on the numbers of people in the United States because of this executive order?
People, yes, we're certainly seeing people already making decisions that they can't come. There's a certain number of the L1, the intracompany transfer visas, who have people already shuttling to other countries who would have been contributing their talents and tax dollars here.
So, Julie, what's the argument on the part of the administration here? Does this move really save American jobs?
No, it's given as a reason, and it stands to reason that we're still needing more jobs here. The only issue is that the very order prohibited people who are taking jobs that Americans cannot fill. By definition, this intercompany transferee, the L1 visa, for example, by our own law, has to be somebody who has worked for the company overseas and already has special knowledge about that particular company. And so no American's going to get that job. The others are H-1B workers. You've heard a lot about them. They're 2.9% of the workforce, and just a lot higher percentage of our patents and all that. But if American workers could fill those jobs, these people would not be. They would not be in need. The employers would not be paying. In the first 2-3 years, they pay up to $20,000 in government and legal fees for these people. So no, we don't believe that they will create a single job for U.S. workers.
And as you point out, H-1B visas represent only 2.9% of U.S. workers. And if that statistic weren't enough, there's another one associated with it, which is that they're involved in 1 in 4 patents. So what happens if there is a blanket ban on H-1B visas? It lasts beyond the end of the year. I mean, do current H-1B workers have to leave?
As of now, no. If you have an H-1B visa and you're already in the country, no. But we don't know about those who are... those right now outside the country cannot come in, and there are a lot of those as well. If you think about just like the competition for talent in a global economy, what are the odds that of the 7 billion people in the world, that all of the talent you might need to be the very best in any discipline is right among our less than 400 million people, right? So who knows what impact that'll have on us. worldwide and in the future. But already, it's interesting. Even if this order is being challenged in the courts, and even if it succeeds because of the lack of notice, we've had some things like with DACA, the administrative notice that it's required. The message has already gotten through, and it's already sent a chilling effect throughout the international community that you can't count on a deal made with the U.S. Never before in our history have people been awarded visas and then told, oh, just kidding, you can't come in. You put your whole life on hold. Your kids, your family was supposed to come here. You are the sort of person who has a choice of going anywhere in the world. And guess what? We're not honoring our deal. So that effect could go on for years. These people plan ahead.
So, Julie, I used to cover as a securities analyst at a lot of the internet companies like Facebook and Alphabet, and it seems like on every conference call, when asked about one of their biggest challenges, it is finding and retaining top engineering and computer science talent. And I know those tech companies really depend on these H-1B visas because they simply can't source the jobs internally in the U.S. U.S. universities are not producing enough engineers, computer scientists, and so on. What's been the response from the tech industry?
Well, you've seen it be very strong. We generally don't see the CEOs coming out of the record. Immigration is just hot potato. People don't want to mention, but there have been many CEOs coming saying you can't do this. Even Tim Cook at Apple and others. It's just no one, Republican nor Democrat, has attracted talent. As you may know, I started a firm 25 years ago with a former head of U.S. immigration under Presidents Reagan and Bush Sr., and they, no matter how they felt about people who wanted to come in illegally, were always pro, talent. So we were really surprised. Even some Republican senators said, do not cut this off. So here's an interesting thing. Before COVID, a lot of people, especially in engineering, thought, like Marissa Mayer did when she was at Yahoo, that we had to have the talent here in the U.S. Because they wanted teams to work together. And then since COVID, a lot of people proved, because they had to, that they could work remotely. And a study of global mobility managers that we did at our firm found that 83% of managers are now more willing to hire people, let's say in Canada or somewhere else. So anyway, it's going to be a huge gift for Canada. It's
going to be a huge gift for our friends in Canada and other parts, and a loss for the United States. Julie Pearl, CEO of the Pearl Law Group, talking to us about this immigration of these highly skilled and trained workers, which, again, the tech companies, they just kind of right down the line, they tell you how important finding and retaining tech talent is, and they need those visas. But right now, let's head down to Washington, D.C. for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, we're continuing to track the reopening, and there is another dial back to report. Miami-Dade, Florida Mayor Carlos Jimenez is issuing an executive order for dine-in restaurants, gyms, and party venues to close as of Wednesday. Jimenez says beaches in Miami-Dade could close again if there's crowding. He says office buildings and stores can stay open for now. The coronavirus is putting the return of Major League Baseball in doubt. The World Series champion Washington Nationals shut down their spring training this morning after just 3 days. General Manager Mike Rizzo says all players and staff were tested for COVID-19 last Friday, and they're still waiting for results from the Major League Baseball lab. Rizzo says he cannot put employees at risk. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows says President Trump is focused on the recovery and another round of stimulus, though that might not include a second round of checks for individuals.
Whether that is making sure that the take-home check for every American is greater with a payroll tax deduction, whether it's making sure that we provide incentives for American manufacturing to be brought back from abroad.
Florida reported another 3.2% increase in COVID-19 infections today. Arizona's case count went up another 3.4%. Both were below the previous 7-day average. And New York reported its coronavirus cases rose by 0.1%. A tell-all memoir from President Trump's niece will be coming out earlier than expected. According to Dow Jones, publisher Simon & Schuster has moved up the release date for Mary Trump's book 2 weeks to July 14th. Global news on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
For the Jewish Communal Fund, Noel Spiegel, former senior partner with Deloitte & Touche and past JCF president, discusses the advantages of a donor-advised fund over a private foundation.
There's a lot involved in having a private foundation. You need to engage attorneys, you need to engage accountants, file tax returns. At JCF, all of that is done for you. You don't have to get involved in anything other than making your contribution to your fund and then determining which grants that you want to make.
A JCF fund may be opened with a minimum $5,000 contribution of cash or appreciated securities and can be used as an alternative to or together with a private foundation.
If you have a foundation, you have to list all of the contributions that you made. Potentially anybody, because the information is public, can find out exactly which organizations a foundation has made charitable contributions to.
Let JCF simplify your philanthropy and protect your privacy. Learn more about JCF's private client group at jcfny.org.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit hud.gov/fairhousing. That's hud.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
The market's in focus.
Hey, I'm Robin, one of the tech experts here to help you at Curry's PC World. I'm not just a voice on the radio. You can now come into your local store and talk tech with a human being like me. Just the news you needed this afternoon. We've put all the right measures in place to help you again safely in your local Staples Corner store. The tech experts are back in town. So come in and see if that laptop can help you improve your home setup. And welcome back to your local Curry's PC World.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not book an MOT to get you safely back on the road? With over 600,000 carried out every year at 350 garages, you can always count on our experts. And get back to visiting those you've missed the most.
Hi, Mum.
From a safe distance, of course. From MOTs to battery replacements and tyre fittings, there's no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Ever wondered how people's postcode lottery works? Easy. Your postcode is your ticket. And every weekday it gives you the chance to win £1,000 or £30,000 every weekend. And every month players in your postcode could win a share of £3 million. Join in at postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of July to play in the August draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
So I often struggled at school. Once, when we had a maths test, I looked around the room and everyone was just doing it. And I couldn't, and I began to cry. But my teacher came over and said, it might look like one big problem, but it's just a handful of small ones, and you can deal with that. I hear her voice in my head for every problem I face to this day.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. You could get £26,000 tax-free to train as a teacher. Subject to eligibility, selected subjects only. Search Get Into Teaching.
Are you ready to play?
This summer ITV Hub is fully loaded with loads more fall series.
Gonna get messy.
Yeah, like it's fuller than ever. From Love Island to Layer, we have divas lined up back to back.
Filmy and Sister.
From the GC and the Ibiza Weekend, the reps, the Real Housewives is round full of lots and lots of...
This is getting too much now.
Laughs, tears and smiles. It's crammed full with full series like Wiz, Flesh and Blood, Harry's Heroes and Manx in Mumbai. We've grown, expanded and just gone a bit extra this summer.
Give me some
ITV Hub fully loaded this summer.
The best experience possible.
Did we mention it's looking fuller than ever?
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
At Simply Be, we've stepped up our sales so that you can step out in style. With up to 80% off summer clothing, you'll find some seriously must-have fashion at prices that are simply too good to miss. So go on, skip those weekend queues and treat yourself to something gorgeous. Shop the sale at simplybe.co.uk.
The big Volkswagen event is now on. If you're after a new Volkswagen, we offer to pay your first 3 months finance payments and an additional £500 to £1,000 contribution to your deposit at 3.8% APR representative. Hello, sir. Do any take your fancy?
Well, yes, a new Golf or T-Cross. A Tiguan. No, Passat. Oh, I need to sit down.
Here, have a seat.
The big Volkswagen event. With every type of car on offer, you may have trouble choosing. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan until 12th of July, excludes e-Golf at participating retailers only. Minimum 46 months to receive 3 months finance payments. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Finance. Contact your local retailer to book an appointment.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. We're being brought to you by SEI. Crises and challenges highlight the power of partnership and character. Work for the common good. One community. SEI. Go to SEIC.com/banks. U.S. stocks are jumping today. Tech shares leading the way. The S&P 500 headed toward its 5th straight increase, and the Nasdaq Composite Index rising to a record. Amazon.com and Tesla among the best performers. Uber Technologies, that is also surging after the company agreed to buy Postmates. Right now, the Dow up 390 points, a rise of 1.5%. We're at 26,218. The S&P 500 up 50 points, a rise of 1.6% at 3180. And the Nasdaq Composite Index up 251 points, a rise of 2.5% at 10,459. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Vonnie Quinn and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Merger Monday is back. We had Uber in the market with a deal to get it increase its presence in the food delivery market. Then, of course, Warren Buffett on a $10 billion deal getting into the energy space. Let's break down these deals for you. First, Mandeep Singh, Senior Technology Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. So, Mandeep, we know Uber has really been looking to expand its presence in the eats business, particularly during this pandemic. Give us a sense of what they're doing here with this deal.
Sure. So essentially, they are using their stock to eliminate or take out one of the competitors, in this case, Postmates being the smaller player in the food delivery market. And I think it makes sense because the market right now currently is valuing the food delivery companies much higher than, the Lyfts and the Ubers, Uber as an aggregate. And so the fact that they are paying it using stock and the stock has gone up is a validation of the fact that, this is a good deal. And what you're seeing right now is a reflection of an aggregation of market share. So it will help their EBITDA. They talked about $200 million in cost synergies. We think it should be at least $500 million in cost synergies for them to get to EBITDA positive on the Eat side. And they should be able to get there simply because you talked about the tailwind from the COVID situation. So this is a large market. There are a large players. Amazon is focusing on delivery, grocery delivery. We think Uber will get into grocery delivery using Postmates, which made early inroads. So net-net, it's a large addressable market. Eliminating one of the competitors is a positive step. And given Uber didn't have a brand on the food delivery side, Postmates will definitely help.
Will there be further consolidation, particularly since these are really just delivery services in the sense that there are massive kitchens that make the meals of certain restaurants. Isn't that how it works, Mandeep? It's not that each restaurant sends out a bunch of food to get delivered.
That's correct, yes. So there is an element of technology in terms of how they route, how they batch this stuff, how they do the matching, and that is what drives the efficiency in this business. At the end of the day, the more data you collect in this business, the better you are going to get in terms of, the supply-demand dynamics. And Postmates, like I said, had a broader offering in terms of both food delivery, grocery delivery, in terms of the matching and the routing that I mentioned. And we think it's just because they were more focused, their technology stack, Postmates technology stack, is marginally better than Uber Eats, even though Uber Eats have the scale. And so bringing Postmates, which was more focused on a broader offering, should help, improve the technology stack for Uber.
So just real quickly, I thought, Mandeep, that the Uber Eats business was a money loser for Uber. Has the pandemic changed that so much?
No, in fact, they talked about $200 million in cost synergies, and that's not going to help them get to positive EBITDA. So Postmates will contribute about 20% to the top line, but even with the cost synergies, the EBITDA will still be negative. So, but net, when you think about the scale that Uber has and the fact that their technology stack should get better with Postmates, we think with $500 million in cost synergies, and they can get to that by eliminating marketing costs and other, they should get to positive EBITDA. So at least it should not be money losing next year.
All right, Mandeep, thank you. Uber up at 6% in today's trading. That's Mandeep Singh, Senior Analyst for Technology for Bloomberg Intelligence. Moving a little sideways now, we have another deal in focus, and that is, of course, the Berkshire Hathaway deal. So let's bring in Catherine Chiglinski from our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Catherine, you cover Berkshire Hathaway. How interesting is it that the big deal that we were all waiting for is actually, a bunch of natural gas pipeline and storage assets from Old Dominion?
Well, it's interesting in the way that if you tuned into Berkshire's annual meeting in May, Buffett was really quite pessimistic about the situation and very cautious. And so it's interesting that he finally made a move. But what is unique about this deal is that it wasn't a huge, acquisition. In total, the enterprise value is $9.7 billion, but that's just a slice of Berkshire's $137 billion cash pile. So if anything, this more looks like it's a strategic deal, and it looks like it fits quite well with his other kind of energy empire, that it'll give him a much bigger reach and a lot of natural gas assets. So it's kind of a strategic fit, and it really looks like a deal that will benefit Berkshire, but maybe wasn't the blockbuster everyone was waiting for.
So, again, that kind of begs the question here, what does he do? I mean, what's the smart money saying that Warren Buffett could put, $100 or $200 billion of, asset cash to work at some point?
Well, it's hard. I mean, his universe is quite limited, just since he has so much cash to be able to make a dent in that pile. He has to find a company that's big enough. And he's faced a lot of pressure from competition. If you think about private equity, he's really up against those guys, which are kind of flush with capital. And, he said earlier in May, he was hearing from companies at first in March when this pandemic really set in. But then the Federal Reserve intervened, and he credited the central bank with, really helping to keep markets calm, and it was a good thing overall. But he did note that it actually meant that he wasn't able to strike a lot of those deals that he normally would have gone for. So I think, while he's definitely still obviously on the hunt for an elephant, and if a big interesting company came along, I'm sure he'd be willing to kind of put up money for the right price. But I think, there's a couple factors that are just sort of beyond his control right now.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. Definitely sticking to his comfort zone, and that's actually the phrase that you use as well, Catherine, when we talk about this Dominion Energy deal. So $137 billion, and this is just less than $10 billion. Not nothing, but not not huge relative to the size of Berkshire Hathaway. Our thanks to Catherine Chiglinski, who covers all things Berkshire for us. And Paul, it's going to be quite the week, I think, in equities trading. I mean, it's midsummer. It's post a long weekend. If you were waiting for something, just a little calm, you're not getting it.
No, you're not getting it, and there's obviously more economic data to come. And I think, again, aside from the economic data that we focus on and the company data that we focus on, Vonnie, now there's obviously the healthcare data and those metrics that we and market participants focus on. And specifically, right now, it's kind of the reopenings and then dialing back the reopenings, and that's kind of where I think a lot of investors are focusing their attention, because that really drives economic activity 1 month, 2 months, 3 months down the road. So lots for investors to discount here.
For sure, and the latest headline being the Miami-Dade mayor closing restaurants except for takeout again, gyms and other entertainment venues. So essentially, rolling back, as you said. Harvard out with the headline too. It's planning to bring back
extraordinary
40% of students for the fall term, but we'll see if that actually happens too. From Paul and myself, you are listening to Bloomberg Markets. Our thanks to producers Sam Langa and Tim Harrell.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings. At the start of every day,
Where do hockey and pop culture coexist?
So let me get this straight. You would be able to name more people nostalgically than currently? This doesn't.
Come on.
You're crazy. I know.
Other podcast, Puck Soup, NHL analyst Greg Wyshynski, Sean McAdoo, and Ryan Lambert chase the conversational biscuit up and down the ice, skating between serious discussion on what's happening in pro hockey to irreverent opinions on movies, fast food, and life in general. Search Puck Soup on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Trey Wingo here from ESPN's Golic and Wingo. Every morning, Mike Golic Jr., and I sit down to discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golic and Wingo to start listening today.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races. To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. Home alone or with housemates, stay home as much as possible. Try to allow only people you live with into your home. Wash your hands. If you're sick, stay home and isolate from house.
Okay, you probably can see that we closed position just half an hour ago on euro at this level. So let me check how much broker paid me. £1,000. So from 113.23.5 at this level, and at this level it closed at 113.13.5. Total profit £1,000.
So we've got a nice broad rally going across right after the July 4th weekend. What's going on, Abigail?
It's certainly a very healthy rally. In fact, David, we're looking at the longest winning streak for the S&P 500 of 2020. Right now, the S&P 500 up for a fifth day in a row. That's the first time we've seen that since December of last year. And we have, as you were mentioning, all of the indexes participating to a wide degree. Now, some of this was set off by the big rally in China, multi-day rally there, parabolic move higher, spiking higher for those China stocks, really bleeding into all of the global equities. Really leading the way here in the U.S., though, David, some of the tech-heavy stocks. So from a sector perspective, from the 2020 terms, we're actually looking at defensive sectors on top, such as the communication services, services, along with consumer discretionary and tech, and really leading the way, the New York FANG index up for a fifth day in a row, up 4.8% at this point, really surging. This is Amazon, of course, is above $3,000 for the first time ever. So the risk-on mood that we saw last week on the better economic data continuing right into this week.
So, Abigail, listen, it's good news, and I'll take good news, but are we at all worried about some of the things you just talked about? I think the last time the Shanghai Composite went up this hard, this fast, it didn't end very well. And similarly, are we worried about Amazon being that far over its 200-day moving average?
Terrific points, David, because the last time that the Shanghai Composite put in a move of this degree back in 2015, it went much longer and further than anybody expected, but it ended in basically a 50% crash. Whether or not that happens at some point for the Shanghai Composite or when is probably the bigger question, is unclear. But when it gets this frothy, it's really difficult to tell. And relative to Amazon, this stock is up about 80% from the March lows. Really incredible, unbelievably overextended. And this is nerve-wracking from the standpoint, this is the ultimate stay-at-home stock. So while you have this ultimate stay-at-home stock doing so well this year, while the recovery sectors of energy and financials are in bear markets, it really creates a tension because of that overextension and that frothiness. It tells you that at some point, stocks are likely to come back to some sort of technical reality, at least. You were talking about that 200-day moving average, Amazon about 50% above it. But when, David, who knows? Sometimes these things go much further and longer than you could ever expect, quite frankly.
Yeah, very wise, very wise. Thank you so much to Abigail Doolittle for that report on the markets. And we really have had some tension, as Abigail just said, and really it's sort of a tug of war between, on the one hand, a virus that won't go away, and on the other hand, a really stubbornly upward moving equity market. To figure out which is winning, we now welcome Sarah Bianchi. She's head of U.S. public policy at Evercore ISI. So Sarah, what is going on, really? Because there does seem to be something of a disconnect between what the markets are telling us and maybe what the economy is telling us.
Well, the economy obviously had a good report last week on the jobs report, and that was encouraging and I think good news for the Trump administration. But at the same time, you're right. We're seeing the virus raging all over the country in all sorts of new hotspots, and we're starting to see some businesses who are pulling back a little and are closing back down, even in states where they really weren't sure they wanted to, like Florida, like Texas. So I think we're going to have to wait and see. The reality is we lost a ton of jobs in the spring, and so there's still, even with these good jobs number, a lot of people out, a lot of things closed down and looking for work. And so at some point, I do think the market may want to consider some of those factors going forward.
One of the great things about Evercore ISI, at least in my experience, is you look at so many different data points and very frequent data points, really up to date. What are you looking at right now to get a sense of whether those jobs numbers really were right, some of the economic numbers were really good, or whether it was a timing issue because it really excluded, for the most part, the second half of June?
That's a great question. I mean, we are looking at the sectors that the jobs came back in, and also that some of these were temporary unemployment numbers, people who did believe they were furloughed, and we're seeing some more permanence on some other parts of the economy, more permanent layoffs. And so it really is a mixed story. And then we're watching very, very closely when Congress returns from the July 4th recess, what they do around the next stimulus. We think that there are some important cliffs that are coming up, like the extra unemployment insurance that rolls off in the end of July, some real tensions in state and local, and a lot of layoffs in the public sector that are coming. We're watching very closely to see if Congress steps in, as we still think they will, and provides another form of relief in August. And we think that is very critical for the economy and consumers at this point.
Sarah, you, of course, are in charge of U.S. public policy for Evercore ISI. You mentioned the month of July with respect to Congress, perhaps further surveillance. We also have a pesky little election coming up in November. To what extent is this economy dependent upon further fiscal stimulus you just referred to? And for that matter, how nervous is the economy about what might happen in November?
We're starting starting to hear a lot of investors ask about what the implications are of a Democratic sweep. They're starting to consider the kinds of things on healthcare and energy and the like that a Democratic administration might consider. I would say it is not necessarily causing the anxieties that you might expect. I think there is some who believe that the relationship with China might be a bit more predictable, and that would be helpful to markets. Potentially some of the public health measures in combating the virus might be effective. So it's not a clean story, but certainly investors are starting to look and starting to price in particular sectors. I would say the other thing is, for the president, the best case he right now has with voters, where we're still seeing a slight advantage to the president, is on who can rebuild this economy. So the other thing we're really watching is, can these jobs numbers keep up, and will voters really start to transition from the virus and some of the other issues we've seen this summer, like race relations, and really focus there? And will President Trump be able to use that to close some of the gaps in the election right now? We think these numbers will tighten to some degree, but obviously there's a long way to go.
And finally, Sarah, I mean, there's been a lot of volatility in the marketplace and in the economic numbers. They got way down. They've come back, although they had a long way to come back. They certainly are not back to where they were. What are the longer term? As you look at the U.S. economy, what are the prospects for longer term damage to the U.S. economy, or maybe potential upside?
Well, I think there are going to be some lasting implications for sure in this economy. I think that we are going to see unemployment at numbers that may not sound better right now than what we're up against. But if you think about the financial crisis and the Great Recession, they're well above anything contemplated in that area. So I think we are going to have some real implications, I think, for higher education, and education particularly in these state budgets, for healthcare, in terms of whether or not some of these hospitals and other providers can build back. So I think there's just a whole lot. At some point, we think Washington will have to reconcile with some of these deficits. We're not there now. Right now, it's very much about filling the holes in the economy and taking more permanent steps like infrastructure to make it more resilient. But ultimately, of course, a lot of money has been spent here. Right. And so we think that whoever the next president is has a lot of economic challenges in their future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. Really great to have you with us. That's Sarah Bianchi of Evercore ISI. She just mentioned, actually, the plight of hospitals. We're going to talk to the leader of one of the most influential hospital centers in the country. That is the Cleveland Clinic. That's coming up next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
It's the people with experience who...
So I often struggled at school. Once, when we had a maths test, I looked around the room and everyone was just doing it. And I couldn't. And I began to cry. But my teacher came over and said, it might look like one big problem, but it's just a handful of small ones. And you can deal with that. I hear her voice in my head for every problem I face to this day. Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. You could get £26,000 tax-free to train as a teacher. Subject to eligibility, selected subjects only. Search Get Into Teaching.
At Simply Be, we've stepped up our sales so that you can step out in style. With up to 80% off summer clothing, you'll find some seriously must-have fashion at prices that are simply too good to miss. So go on, skip those weekend queues and treat yourself to something gorgeous. Shop the sale at simplybe.co.uk.
Minions, did you know Sky Broadband Superfast guarantees your speed? No, Stuart, it doesn't guarantee you'll win the game. Or that your video will go viral. Or that you'll match with the love of your life. But Sky Broadband Superfast does guarantee the speed we promised or money back. So reliable, it's minion-proof. Sky, believe in better. Sky Fibre areas only. Speed measured to hub must drop below min download speed for 3 consecutive days. 1 month subscription refund. Claim up to twice in min term after first fortnight. See sky.com.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races. Who says only the experts get to do the talking? On the Scuttlepuck NHL Hockey Podcast, irreverent outsiders Mike Bond and Dale Horde give their untrained opinions on all things hockey from the fans' perspective.
I don't know how you get those guys out of there. And Crosby, as great as he's been, it's just such a different era, so it's tough with the... he didn't have the crazy number of points that Orr, Lemieux, and Gretzky did. They just...
Search Scuttlepuck on TuneIn to listen.
This is Mike Golick Jr. from ESPN's Golick and Wingo. Every morning, Wingo, Dad, and I sit down to discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golick and Wingo to start listening today.
Ready to talk brass tacks on what's happening in Major League Baseball? Turn to the Effectively Wild podcast from Fangraphs for daily statistics, analysis, and commentary.
One team will say, yeah, we're going to keep paying minor leaguers their stipend, and another team will say, we're going to extend the stipend through this month, and then another team will say, nope, we're cutting them off. So are extending it at least through August, which would basically be the end of the minor league regular season.
Search Effectively Wild on TuneIn to listen.
To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. Outdoor gatherings, wash your hands and don't touch your face. Stay at least 6 feet from people you don't live with. Wear a mask. Don't share food, toys, or other items, and avoid shared surfaces. Participate in events like these infrequently. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
Wondering what to play next? Want to know what other TuneIn listeners are listening to right now? Head to the trending section under Browse to explore the most popular stations and podcasts on TuneIn today. Millions of listeners like you can't be wrong.
Want to get all your college sports news in one place? Turn on the Yahoo Sports College Podcast to hear experts Dan Wetzel, Pat Forty, and Pete Thamel break down the latest NCAA stories from the football field to the basketball court and beyond.
I think Reggie should do a video of him running to Heritage Hall and front flipping in. Remember that famous front flip in the end zone that he did? Wasn't he the one who made that popular?
I think he was. I think he was, yeah.
Search Yahoo College Sports Podcast on TuneIn to listen.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up and do Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick Six Podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brinson's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards, that's how you wind up.
Search Pick Six on TuneIn to listen.
Have to learn how to live with the virus. And there are ways that we can minimize the spread of the virus to keep each and every one of us safe. And those measures are known to many viewers. It's masking, it's keeping physical distance, good cough etiquette, and good hand hygiene.
And as you looked around on July 4, as far as you could tell, are people obeying the rules, or is it the government is not having the rules be tight enough, or are people just disregarding them?
Well, I think that first and foremost, we have a responsibility to educate our fellow citizens about what is appropriate in this time of pandemic. We cannot emphasize enough how social distancing, physical distancing, wearing a mask, avoiding the large gatherings, in particular in enclosed spaces with poor ventilation. It's really important to keep each and every one of us safe. A real challenge with a pandemic like this is, in order for us individually to be safe and stay healthy, people around us have to be very, very cautious. And I think that is the most important message. And the degree of compliance varies. It varies in the different parts of the country. It varies in different societal strata. It varies in different age groups. So what we're seeing today is a result of a relaxation of a restriction and not a full compliance to what all of us understand is and know about is reasonable and responsible behavior.
Doctor, there was a time not that far long ago, late March, early April, when a number of us were really concerned about overburdening the hospitals, that we were really in bad shape, particularly here in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. As you look at it now, first of all, how's the Cleveland Clinic doing? How are you keeping up with whatever cases you have? And as you look across the country, how are we situated in terms of hospital care?
Well, we have come a long way since March. In this past 4 months, we have learned a lot about the virus. We have learned a lot about how we as providers need to get organized. Cleveland Clinic is doing really well. We are seeing only a mild increase in the number of patients hospitalized. Being in a hospital with a COVID infection here in Ohio, that number is somewhat higher in Florida, where we also have a very strong presence. But this is not a matter of concern right now. We have enough equipment, enough people, enough medication, and enough capacity to serve each and every person who needs our services.
So Cleveland Clinic obviously is first and foremost an organization to serve people, to make sure that they get healthy, they stay healthy. But you're also a very big business. How has this affected the Cleveland Clinic business?
Well, there are two phases in this pandemic that had different effect on our business. In the first part of the pandemic, in the first 2 to 3 months, what we did deliberately, and then rightfully so, is that we have decreased the number of services that we could defer in order to create a capacity for what we anticipated it was supposed to be a very, very large influx of COVID patients. Well, that wave of a large number of COVID patients, fortunately, here in Ohio, in Florida, did not happen. As a consequence, we had for about 2 or 3 months a lot of capacity that stayed vacant, and we have suffered significant financial losses. Fortunately, what we are seeing now is that the confidence of our patients in our services and the safety of the hospital environment is getting better. So they're coming back to resume a much-needed care that was deferred for several months. So we are now about 95% to 95% of our regular pre-COVID hospital activity.
And what about testing and contact tracing, for that matter? Are we doing enough of it in this country? It certainly has ramped up a lot from what it was before, but there's things like talked about, like group tracing or community testing that might be done. Are there things that we should be doing on the testing and tracing front that we're not?
We're doing much more testing than we did only a few months ago, and that has been a tremendous success across the entire country. And a part of the reason for it is because very many hospitals have picked up the responsibility for testing, and Cleveland Clinic as well. Over the past several months, which we have increased our ability to testing several-fold. But we're also looking, as you just mentioned, in new ways to test larger populations. And I do believe that our ability to test and our ability to test larger populations is increasing very, very rapidly, and I do believe that we will be meeting the demands of every person who needs to be tested.
Well, and that demand may go up, entirely possible, in the fall, because a lot of us are concerned about schools, whether they're public schools, lower schools, or higher education, how that's going to work. Do you see a path right now to going back to school in some form, at least in a safe way, particularly as people are concerned that there'll be a normal flu season that will really exacerbate the problem?
Well, the good news about the upcoming flu season is that all the measures that we're taking into account to minimize the spread of a COVID virus are also effective measures to minimize the spread of the flu. So we are very much hoping to see a lower number of the flu cases than what we used to see historically. So that is a good news. Obviously, with an opening of the schools and opening of universities, we're faced with a new challenge. However, we do believe that there is a way to keep both the students as well as the faculty safe. That will require the same measures that we spoke about before: more social distancing, more awareness of those who are ill, wearing masks in classrooms, just simply to minimize the risk of exposure. But there is absolutely no doubt that in particular for our youngest students, coming back to school is really important, not only from educational perspective, but also from the perspective of their social development.
And finally, Doctor, let's talk about one of the aspects of this that may be the most tragic, and that is the greatly disproportionate effect of this disease on minority communities, the black communities, the Hispanic communities, and for that matter, the Native American communities as well. Are there things we can do to address that particular problem? I mean, some of those communities have a tougher time with social distancing. They have jobs that require them to be in touch with people. Are there things that the healthcare system can do to really disproportionately help those people who need it the most?
Yes, we can do a lot, and we should do a lot. I think we have to remember that in order for us individually to be safe, our entire communities have to be kept safe, in particular those who are most vulnerable. Our minority populations across the country are those who deserve the most attention. Most large healthcare systems are really making a lot of effort to come closer to those in need, to open up the testing capacity as well as services at their homes and in the neighborhoods that are most affected with COVID. Cleveland Clinic is no exception. We're firmly dedicated to the health of our entire communities, in particularly those that are most vulnerable.
Okay, Doctor, thank you so very much for being with us today. It was truly helpful. That is Dr. Tom Mihalovic. He is the president and CEO of the Cleveland Clinic. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
You may not be getting on planes yet.
At what point do we start to see this elusive V-shaped recovery?
But for detailed, up-to-the-minute news of Asia, you don't have to.
Do you think that the tension has the possibility to destabilize Asian assets?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Do you expect some of these companies that come and list here to then delist in New York?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. You get two for the price of one today. Two stocks they are, Berkshire Hathaway plus Dominion. As Dominion sells most of its natural gas business over to Berkshire Hathaway, and Scarlett Fu is here to explain it to us. Start with Berkshire Hathaway. And we don't think of that as an energy company, but boy, it sure is, isn't it, Scarlett?
It really has become more of an energy company. I mean, insurance and manufacturing is still the big parts of the business here, but what it comes down to is Buffett is seen as this ultimate value investor. His ability to sniff out undervalued deals when everyone else is holding their nose? Well, Buffett has been pretty much missing in action, at least during the March sell-off after the pandemic began. If anything, he was a visible victim because of his investments in the 4 biggest airlines, which he has since sold off. But this week, Berkshire Hathaway pulling the trigger, pouncing on a very out-of-favor area of the market, which is energy. It's buying, as you said, Dominion Energy's natural gas pipeline and storage assets right as that company looks to shift away from natural gas. Now, for Berkshire, this is the biggest purchase in 4 years. It's worth almost $10 billion, but it only shells out $4 billion in cash and is assuming $5.7 billion of Dominion's debt. This moves the needle on Berkshire's energy portfolio, which is very exposed to natural gas as well as renewables like wind and solar energy. Now, in the 2019 annual report, David, Warren Buffett called energy one of the lead dogs of Berkshire's non-insurance business. Both Burlington Northern and energy punch above their weight in terms of their impact on Berkshire's bottom line. Energy, for instance, makes up 8% of revenue at Berkshire Hathaway, but 14% of the bottom line. So that gives you a sense of just how much power it packs. Now, to the rest of the market, this signals that the energy sector is undervalued. It's confirmation, really. This is the largest deal this year to buy energy assets, and Berkshire Hathaway is striking when the natural gas market is at or near its lows. Last month, we saw natural gas prices make a 25-year low, and even though it's come up a little bit, David, it's still pretty much bumping along the bottom.
Yeah, it certainly must send a message because Warren Buffett doesn't like to buy expensive. He likes to buy cheap, yes. So he must have decided it's at a low point and he can bring it up. So that's terrific. Thank you so much, Scarlett, for that report on Dominion Energy and Berkshire Hathaway. Meanwhile, coming up here, we're going to talk with Eugene Scalia. He is the Secretary of Labor for his views on the state of the U.S. jobs market. This comes after those surprisingly strong numbers coming out just before the holiday weekend. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. U.S. stocks are posting gains led by tech companies. The Dow is up 330 points, S&P up 44. The tech-heavy NASDAQ is up 220 points, or 2%. Amazon shares reached $3,000 for the first time today. And Uber shares rose after announcing it's buying the food delivery service Postmates in a $2.6 billion all-stock deal. But there's been another retail bankruptcy. Lucky Brands Jeans blames the coronavirus for its Chapter 11 filing. It's closing 13 of its 200 stores and will sell itself to authentic brands. And Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg meets tomorrow with leaders of the NAACP, the Anti-Defamation League, and Color of Change. The groups have accused Facebook of not doing enough to combat racism and voter suppression. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
How long will it take for the economy to recover?
How many of them have remained on the job throughout this?
People are not going to be in public transportation.
Nobody knows.
You have received £600 million from the UK.
But we can promise the most complete information and the most detailed analysis.
The question is, what kind of recovery will it be?
Through every twist and turn.
Would you be wary of investment in China at this point?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. It is time for First Word News, and for that we go to Karina Mitchell.
David, we start with COVID-19 numbers. Florida continues to see record numbers of the coronavirus. The state says cases rose 3.2% today, which was down slightly from the day before. Florida has had more than 60,000 new cases in the past week. That's the highest since the pandemic began. In hard-hit Miami, officials are planning to close restaurants, gyms, and other businesses that had already reopened to help stem the spread. And President Trump is suggesting NASCAR's only black driver should apologize after a rope fashioned like a noose was found in his garage, calling the incident a hoax. In a tweet, the president asked whether Bubba Wallace had apologized after an FBI investigation found the rope had been installed months earlier to pull down the garage door. Wallace has not been accused of any involvement. And the Supreme Court has ruled that states can require presidential electors to back their state's popular vote winner in the Electoral College. The court rejected arguments that the Constitution gives presidential electors the right to vote as they please, no matter who won the state's popular vote. The issue stemmed from lawsuits filed by Hillary Clinton electors in Washington state and Colorado who refused to vote for her despite her popular vote win in both states. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Karina Mitchell. This is Bloomberg. David, back to you.
Thank you so much, Karina. Jobs numbers out just before the holiday weekend showed that unemployment for Black Americans and Hispanic Americans was going down again after a rise the month before for Black Americans. At the same time, those unemployment numbers are still above what we see for white Americans, perpetuating a growing economic inequality in this country that is going on now for a generation. After World War II, the United States embarked on a path toward income equality, as the top 1% of earners lost a significant share of the nation's income for a generation. But in the early 1970s, the nation took an abrupt turn in how earnings are distributed. Flash forward to today, and America has the highest level of wealth inequality among all of the G7. The U.S. Secretary of Labor, he is Eugene Scalia. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us. You have a very powerful position. You can't control everything. You don't do tax policy. You don't control appropriations. But within your jurisdiction, Department of Labor, are there things that you can do or are doing to try to turn around the growing economic inequality in this country?
Well, David, good to be with you. And actually, President Trump had done really important things to change, some of the developments that you were describing in his first 3 terms in office. As you know, we had record low unemployment in February, right before the virus really struck. It was at 3.5%. We'd created 7 million jobs since the president came in. The projection had been that we would create 1.9 million, but we created 7 million jobs. But one of the things the president was proudest about was how particularly good that economy was for groups that historically had difficulties in the workplace. So we had all-time low African-American unemployment, Hispanic-American unemployment, Asian-American, really good things. And then on wages, which you were covering, a really good story there, too. We reversed a trend which we'd seen during President Obama's administration, where the top 10% of income earners saw their wages growing more. That was reversed. And so we had wage growth across the board, but wage earners in the bottom 10% actually had faster wage growth than those in the top 10%. And just one last point, there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal just about a month ago. The headline was that it had been the best job market for African Americans really in history before the virus struck. So the president's policies of tax cuts, of trade deals like USMCA, eliminating unnecessary regulatory burdens, had actually gone a long way toward helping all Americans economically, but particularly those who've had difficulties in the job market in the past.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly true. That was very true. By the way, it started in the later days of the Obama administration and continued, absolutely right, during the Trump administration. And you were doing terribly well with some of the less fortunate segments of the population. But that was then, and this is now. And the fact is, COVID-19 and the aftermath of the economic shutdown hit some of those minority communities, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, harder than it hit white Americans. What will it take to turn that back around? I mean, there is a sort of a last hired, first fired phenomenon in the U.S. economy.
Well, as you mentioned, David, in the jobs report that we put out Thursday, we saw real progress. We've now created 7.5 million jobs, put 7.5 million Americans back to work just in the last couple of months, which is just so much better than people were projecting. And we did see people coming back across a broad variety of industries and also a broad demographic sweep. There was concern expressed when we put our report out for May that African-American unemployment had not come down, but it did come down. And a number that really struck me was the labor participation rate, measuring how many African-Americans are out there looking for work. And that number went up significantly, more than I think for just about any other demographic. That to me showed confidence in the job market and a willingness to jump back in. Now, other things that have been in play, the Paycheck Protection Program has been really important for Americans employed by small businesses, many of them minorities, obviously. That helped keep them on payroll, and the president has continued to support and replenish that program. And then we had this very substantial unemployment benefit in the CARES Act, which the president signed, $600 a week. That, of course, has been important to Americans put out of work, too. The longer term, David, what I would say is going to be most important is what worked before. The president's policies that incentivize business growth, that's what's going to bring jobs back. It's what long term is going to lead to rising wages. And in that vein, I'll just note the USMCA went into effect last week. NAFTA was ushered out last week. That's going to be a really good thing for American jobs, too.
There's no question those numbers surprised the upside, and everybody was happy to see them when they came out last Thursday. No question about it. We still have a long way to go. I'm sure you'd be the first one to say it. We've got millions and millions of Americans that still don't have a job right now. At the same time, the numbers that you're looking at...
Absolutely. We still have progress to make.
But the numbers you're looking at, as I understand, really stopped sort of mid-June. And since then, there's been something of a resurgence of coronavirus. How confident are you in those numbers, given that timing issue? But also, I've seen reports that perhaps the surveys, you're not getting the same level of responses in your surveys. Are you confident of the numbers?
We are confident in those numbers, David. we are getting the response rate we need to our surveys to stand by those numbers that we're putting out. That is a question that I ask occasionally, and I'm satisfied in that regard. You're right. We are seeing rising cases in some locations and in some states, and that has to be taken seriously. I see that as a warning for Americans across the country that the virus is still out there. We still need to practice social distancing. When that's not possible, quite often we're going to need to wear masks, and that's being reinforced. I think, fortunately, the CDC, the Department of Health and Human Services, and others in the federal government are responding very quickly, getting added personnel out there, bringing their expertise to bear to control those outbreaks. And I think we can continue to safely reopen as long as we're careful. And again, as long as we bear in mind the lesson that we've observed in California, Arizona, and elsewhere. There are, just to take one example, still 900,000 fewer people employed in healthcare right now than in February. Those are all jobs that ought to come back. Employment in the government sector, much lower than in February. All jobs that ought to come back, and that I think will be coming back in the weeks ahead.
So, and finally, Mr. Secretary, you talked about the PPP. You also talked about the supplemental unemployment insurance. Obviously, this is a big issue right now in Washington about another round of fiscal stimulus. You and I have talked about this before. Have we made any progress? Do we have a better sense of what is appropriate, what is necessary, what will get done? Because it really, frankly, is about this month, right? July 31 is the deadline on the unemployment insurance.
Right. The unemployment benefit in the CARES Act ends at the end of the month. And when we talk about stimulus, I again want to reinforce steps like the USMCA. I mean, that is going to stimulate the economy. That's going to stimulate job growth. Tax relief, that's going to stimulate job growth. And I think that's something will be talked about toward the end of the month. And, of course, the president has already emphasized how he wants to take a closer look at eliminating regulatory burdens that can free up our economy more. In terms of unemployment benefits, I think there will be discussion. It's clear to me that the $600 a week benefit was a really good thing to do when the economy was being shut down. We were closing our economy. But I think it looks very different in an opening economy, particularly one that's doing so much better than people were expecting back in March. So I think we're really ahead of where we thought we'd be. And the $600 benefit, I think it's right that it expires at the end of the month.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being here. Always a treat to have you with us. That is Eugene Scalia. He is the Secretary of the Department of Labor. And coming up next, we're going to talk with retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett about those reports, at least, of a Russian bounty on the heads of American soldiers in Afghanistan. That's coming up next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Reopenings. Is there a likelihood?
Find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
When you're buying tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to a computer or to someone called Colin or Derek or Sanjay or Sue or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, it's Ali. Can I give you a hand?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
At Simply Be, we've stepped up our sales so that you can step out in style. With up to 80% off summer clothing, you'll find some seriously must-have fashion at prices that are simply too good to miss. So go on, skip those weekend queues and treat yourself to something gorgeous. Shop the sale at simplybe.co.uk.
You always say the best thing you ever did was join up. I bet you don't get the same experiences in Civvy Street, especially the expats. Feeling of pride. Lots of people are rejoining now. It's easy, and we'd love to have you back. Go on. Feel the pride again. Search RAF Rejoiners.
This is the home that stays in together. Zoflora's things clean in this windy weather.
That disinfects doorknobs, floors, baked bean cans.
Fills rooms with fragrance. Does meetings in gin jams.
This is a home that cares with pride.
Shares smiles and waves with those either side.
Because this is your London, not inside alone.
But all house proud together. One big beautiful home.
Zoflora, killing germs beautifully since 1922.
Looking to freshen up your listening on TuneIn? Head to the homepage to discover something new. There you'll see custom recommendations based on your listening habits, along with new episodes of shows you've enjoyed in the past. Uncover your next audio obsession on the homepage.
How do hockey fans know what day it is? Just turn on the Locked on NHL podcast, where a rotating cast of hockey experts guide you through the week with a different theme show for every day. From big news Monday to recap Friday.
But we've got a couple of news items that are noteworthy in the NHL in the last week, one of which is below the NHL, and we'll bring that up first. So the AHL announced officially, this has been speculated for weeks and weeks, but the AHL...
Search Locked on NHL on TuneIn to listen.
Want to get all your college sports news in one place? Turn on the Yahoo Sports College podcast to hear experts Dan Wetzel, Pat Forty, and Pete Thamel break down the latest NCAA stories from the football field to the basketball court and beyond.
I think Reggie should do a video of him running to Heritage Hall and front flipping in. Remember that famous front flip in the end zone that he did? Wasn't he the one who made that popular?
I think he was.
I think he was, yeah.
Search Yahoo College Sports Podcast on TuneIn to listen.
We're all guilty of spending too much time on social media. Why not add something genuinely useful to your feed with TuneIn? Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to learn about some of the best stuff happening around the app. You might just discover your next audio obsession.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Wanna bet football can make you feel nostalgic?
Playing days are over, so...
On the podcast, NFL Alumni Lounge, Charlie Booth sits down with retired NFL legends to talk about their careers, life after football, and everything in between.
Mr. Darren Waller, good to have you.
Yes, sir, it's good to be here.
Dana White, welcome to the Alumni Lounge.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Big member of our NFL alumni family, the CEO of the XFL, Mr. Oliver Luck.
Charlie, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
We're here with the president, Mr. Eric Price. Good to see you.
Search NFL Alumni Lounge on TuneIn to listen.
To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. Indoor gatherings. Wash your hands and don't touch your face. Stay at least 6 feet from people you don't live with. Wear a mask. Don't share food, toys, or other items, and avoid shared surfaces. Open windows for better ventilation. Try to avoid gathering indoors as much as possible. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
I mean, what are the sorts of levers that we have at this point?
Well, we often use this acronym DIME. We have all the sorts of levers such as diplomatic, informational, military, economic. Clearly, the Russian economy is very, very weak. Sanctions are having an effect there the way that they're having inside of Iran. We can also use diplomacy to push not simply the United States, but all of its allies, because our allies are far more affected by the Russian incursions and the Russian influence, particularly our European allies. So we should work as an organization of nations to push back on Russia and what Vladimir Putin is trying to do. But I think it's also important to understand that Russia, at its core, is a weak country. It has a declining birth rate. It has a constantly declining age of its citizens. The economy is weak. It's primarily dependent upon petroleum. So while it is a threat, I think we need to understand it's not the Soviet threat of the Cold War, but it's just a very aggressive nation that has a leader that knows how to play his cards well.
Mark, what do you think about the suggestion that I've seen in the press, at least, about declaring the GRU, which I think is the intelligence arm of the Russian military, a terrorist organization? Is that constructive?
It probably would be constructive, particularly Unit 29155, which has been responsible for many of these actions. Whether it's a terrorist organization or whether it's a sanctioned organization, the GRU, the modern-day version of the KGB, has been responsible not simply for these types of acts, but they've been operating in targeted assassinations around the world and other disruptive operations. So, yeah, we ought to take action against that organization, and I had some fairly radical suggestions in the piece I wrote for Cypher Brief.
And as a practical matter, you've dealt with these issues for many, many years, Mark. Are we inadvertently encouraging Vladimir Putin by not responding to some of what he's done in the Crimea, in various places around the world, as he's pushed us? Syria, you mentioned.
Oh, I think this notion that somehow we have been non-responsive to Vladimir Putin, I think, is a bit of a stretch. We haven't been as strong against him as we should, and candidly, the president may be a little bit soft as he is with other tough leaders, but I'm often reminded of an airplane that is running out of gas, and that's Vladimir Putin's regime, and that's the Soviet Union. Sooner or later, it's going very, very fast, but sooner or later it's going to fall out of the sky. It cannot sustain this level of activity, whether it's military, whether it's intelligence activity. It just can't maintain this over time. But that, I think we should be working hard to accelerate the demise of the Putin regime so that we can, in fact, get back to normalized relationships with a post-Putin Russia.
But, Mark, to put it very pointedly, does pulling our troops out of Germany, perhaps to sanction Russia for building a Nord Stream 2 pipeline, is that really a way to put pressure on Vladimir Putin?
Well, again, I think that there were other reasons that we did that pulling of 10,000 troops out. But let's also be candid. 10,000 troops is a drop in the bucket. We had 500,000 troops in Europe in the 80s, and it was clear that even then we were unable to stop an invasion from the Soviet Union and the East Germans and the Warsaw Pact nations. So I think there's a lot of symbolism in terms of us repositioning those 10,000 soldiers in Poland, but as a practical effect, it doesn't have any military value at all.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for being with us. I'm delighted to say that retired Brigadier General Mark Kimball will be staying with us for the second hour of Balance of Power. We're going to talk more broadly about U.S. relations with the world in a time of Donald Trump. In the meantime, right here, the Supreme Court of the United States is winding up its term. We're going to talk with Greg Storr, our Supreme Court reporter, about the two decisions they brought down today. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Gathering world-renowned experts takes effort.
We have the perfect person.
Asking them the right questions takes Carol Massar and Jason Kelly.
Is this possibly early indications of a second wave?
Bloomberg Business Week.
Silicon Valley will be forever changed by this pandemic. What's your take?
Are they paying off their balances?
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern.
That is a significant shift.
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. The Supreme Court is just about to end its term, maybe this week, and it came up with two big decisions today, both of which could affect the elections. We turn now to our Supreme Court reporter. He is Greg Stohr, of course. And Greg, let's talk about faithless electors, because I just love the name of the issue. It just sounds so juicy.
Yeah, this is part of our very complicated presidential election system here in the U.S. You know, most of us, when we go to the polls, we think that if one candidate wins the state's popular vote, automatically that candidate gets the state's votes in the electoral college. But it turns out there's some question about whether, or there was some question about whether the people who actually cast those votes in the electoral college have the ability to vote as they please. And today the Supreme Court said no, they do not, and states can penalize them or even remove them if they try to cast their vote for somebody other than the person who won the statewide vote.
Yeah, I mean, there may have been some question, but the Supreme Court didn't have much question, right? They didn't hesitate very long. The other one, though, is actually about robocalls. Good news for us, they can still ban robocalls to our cell phones.
That's right, they can. The court actually broadened this ban in the sense that there was an exception in there for calls made to collect debt owed to the government. And the court said that exception to it is unconstitutional because it favors government speech over other speech, including political speech. And then the court said, we're going to get rid of that exception and we're going to keep the rest of the statute intact, so we still have this federal ban on robocalls to mobile phones, and it now applies when somebody's trying to collect a government debt as well.
Yeah, and goodness knows it applies to election calls, because otherwise we'd be inundated probably from robocalls from the candidates, right?
That's exactly right. And the group that was challenging this is a group of political consultants and the Democratic parties of Washington State and Oregon. They were indeed looking for the ability to make more phone calls to your mobile phone.
Well, I don't get a vote, but I'm in favor, I think, basically just not to be harassed. Thank you so much to Greg Stohr, our crack Supreme Court reporter. Coming up in the second hour of Balance of Power on radio, we're going to talk to Hilda Solis. She's former Secretary of Labor under President Obama. That's in our second hour. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Workers trickling back into Manhattan office towers are finding that life isn't the same without a proper meal and someone to share it with. Could be a while before the work lunch is once again a regular ritual in Manhattan. The reopening of indoor dining in New York City has been delayed as coronavirus cases surge in other parts of the U.S., and many large financial firms take a cautious approach to bringing employees back to offices. So what will restaurants look like in the future, and will your favorite even reopen at all? Different countries are experimenting with different measures to adjust to the new normal. In Hong Kong, occupancy restrictions have been relaxed from 50%, but tables still must have partitions or be 1.5 meters or 5 feet apart. Amsterdam has put diners in individual greenhouses. And in the U.S., the most popular models thus far have involved takeout, mail order, and meal kits, as well as side businesses in wine, liquor, and groceries. Visit BloombergPursuits.com for more. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Working from home, take a little more time for breakfast. Tom Keene.
How will this pandemic change your NASDAQ?
Jonathan Farrow.
When you look at that sector, some of these companies won't exist, will they?
And Lisa Abramowitz.
They've only continued to increase the delinquencies and defaults.
Crunch data topped with fresh world news. Bloomberg Surveillance. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. And now, watch us on Bloomberg Television.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Jenny Liss, Jewish communal leader and philanthropist, talks about why she chose the Jewish Communal Fund for her family's charitable giving.
For a lot of people, it would be the convenience factor. I don't have to track anything.
If charitable giving is an important part of your life, JCF can help you organize your philanthropy with our donor-advised fund. A fund can be established with a minimum tax-deductible contribution of $5,000. Make grants to your favorite charities, and JCF handles all the administration and reporting.
At the year end, our board awards community grants from fees and endowment income to UJ's annual campaign. We also make gifts to specific organizations, the elderly, Holocaust survivors, the hungry. The fact that we come together as a community at the end of the year to build community, that's what makes us different.
Get better at giving back. To find out more about JCF's impact, visit jcfny.org and download the Giving Report. JCF, we have a gift for giving.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Stocks are surging. This update brought to you by SEI. Imagine your asset management firm's operational infrastructure as a competitive advantage. Let SEI show you how at SEIC.com/IMS. It is an update for the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ Composite Index. Right now we have got the S&P 500 Index climbing by 44 points, up 1.4%. At the best level of the day, the S&P was up 1.7%. The Dow is up 348, up by 1.4%, have been up as many as 469 points, and NASDAQ now higher by 226 points. That is a gain of 2.2%. Should point out that in the year-to-date column on the NASDAQ Composite Index, now registering a gain of 16.3%. 10 years down 730 seconds with a yield of 0.69%. Gold up 0.4%, $17.83 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.5%, $40.45 a barrel. Stocks jumped. Tech shares led the way as a huge rally in Chinese markets pushed a global equity benchmark toward a one-month high. S&P heading towards its fifth straight increase. NASDAQ is again trading at a record. And with more on today's commodities story, here's Bloomberg's Renita Young.
Saudi Arabia raised pricing for August oil shipments to Asia, the U.S., and Northern Europe amid signs that energy demand is recovering from its coronavirus-triggered collapse. Yet investors are still concerned that lackluster demand through the summer months will weigh on the oil market's recovery. Renita Young, Bloomberg Radio.
Amazon shares have topped $3,000 for the first time. Amazon is up now by 4.3%, extending a rally that has left most Wall Street analysts in the dust. It is 1:02 on Wall Street. Time now for the Market Drivers Report with a focus on American depository receipts. And here is Dave Wilson.
Thanks, Charlie. ADRs are rising along with U.S. shares. The S&P ADR index is up 1.5%, and the S&P 500 is higher by 1.4%. You mentioned China, Charlie, and Chinese ADRs are higher after the state-run Securities Journal wrote in an editorial that fostering a healthy bull market is now more important to the economy than ever. Online retailer Alibaba Group is up 7.3% in U.S. trading. Social media company Weibo is up 18.3%. And electric car maker NIO is up 24.5%. Sweden's Ericsson has risen 7.1%. The wireless equipment maker introduced software that lets next-generation 5G networks operate on their own without having signals go through current 4G networks. The UK's Lloyds Banking Group has fallen 2.1%. The lender said CEO Antonio Osorio is leaving next June after more than a decade. Chairman Norman Blackwell is also stepping down next year, and Lloyds named former investment banker Robin Budenberg to succeed Blackwell. And Russia's Norilsk Nickel has lost 2.8%. The country's environmental regulator said a diesel fuel spill at one of the mining company's power plants caused $2 billion of damage in the Arctic region, Charlie.
All right, we thank you very much, Dave Wilson, keeping track of those ADRs. Facebook says it will not process U.S. data requests from the Hong Kong government amid concerns that a new security law could criminalize government protests. Facebook shares they're up today by 2.9%. Recapping, the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all surging on this back-to-work Monday after a long holiday weekend. S&P up 44. That's a gain of 1.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Balance of Power.
Everybody in the world has one common enemy, and that's to win the war against this virus.
The first thing you do is listen to the medical professionals.
Those people that lost their pay, we want to see that pay continued.
Where the world of politics meets the world of business.
Our priority is the health and well-being and the lives of the American people.
We want to make sure that we are continuing to support our hospitals.
We've unleashed our most potent weapon of all, the courage of the American people.
Balance of Power with David Weston on Bloomberg Radio.
The economic recovery fights with the coronavirus. U.S. cases continue to rise as further shutdowns take effect. The quest for a vaccine gains momentum even as new concerns arise about transmission, and U.S. allies around the world try to adjust to a confrontational U.S. foreign policy. From New York, welcome to the second hour of Bloomberg Balance of Power. I'm David Weston. President Trump, since the beginning of his administration, has embraced confrontation with U.S. allies, even as he reaches out to rivals and foes. The book by his former national security advisor, John Bolton, makes explicit some of what many had been assuming. Retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, formerly with the State Department and Department of Defense, is still with us from the first hour of Balance of Power. So thank you, Mark, for staying with us. As I say, you had a distinguished military career, having gone to West Point, served in CENTCOM and in the Defense Department. You also were in state. When we read stories, as there is a story right now in Axios, saying that our allies around the world, in South Korea, in Germany, and places like that, read a book like Bolton read, and really say, oh my goodness, we were worried this might be the case. It's just that bad. Is that a partisan reaction for Democrats, or is there something more substantive to it?
Well, I think in general it's a partisan reaction. It may be that the South Koreans have been concerned for some time about American troop presence in South Korea, but this is not something new to President Trump. This has been going on for at least the last 4 administrations, going back to President Carter.
Well, at the same time, with respect to South Korea, it's not just about pulling out troops, but it's really suggesting that they have been taking advantage of us for all these years, right? That something of a freeloader, I think, was the word used. And President Trump has, I think it's fair to say, used transactional language more with our European allies and our Asian allies to say, if you want our troops around, you better be paying us for that. Is that a sensible policy? I mean, does he mean it?
Well, in many ways, we already have that policy. Our status of forces agreements that we have, not only with South Korea, but many of the European countries, there is payment in kind that is provided by the countries. For example, in Germany, they provide bases, they provide support for those bases, they provide infrastructure. But I think everybody recognizes, for example, within NATO, that for years and years, the defense obligations that the nations have agreed to, very few, if any, of the nations have lived up to the commitments that they've made. And as a result, the president is right. There is some economic free riding and defense free riding that's been going on for years and years by other countries. These countries want to enjoy strong social welfare systems. They don't want to pay a lot for their defense needs. We, on the other hand, try to find a better balance and have far more of our GDP focused on defense than those countries do. And they know that they can always stand behind the United States to do the work for them.
At the same time, President Obama went after that issue, didn't he, with our NATO allies, and got sort of the commitment to get up to a certain percentage of their GDP contributing? Was this already on the road to getting fixed, or were there no teeth in that deal? Is President Trump simply trying to put teeth in the deal that President Obama struck?
NATO was formed in the early 50s, and every president since 1950 has said that the NATO partners do not live up to their commitments. In this case, this president was the first to really put some teeth into it. I served in NATO working for the Supreme Allied Commander from 1999 to 2003, and that was a constant lament from the United States But while it was a lament, the actions were primarily rhetoric. There was nothing that was done to change it.
So, Mark, you know the defense establishment here as well as the diplomatic, but you also travel around the world. You talk with a lot of people from other countries. What do you make right now, approaching the end of President Trump's first term in office, of his foreign policy? Is it as destructive as some would make it out to be? Are there allies and rivals who respect his somewhat, I think it's fair to say, belligerent stance at times?
Oddly enough, I spent a lot of time in the Middle East, and for many reasons, they appreciate the toughness that President Trump has shown, particularly to Iran in the situation in the Gulf. A lot has to do with their own cultural norms in the Middle East. They seem to like tough leaders more than democratically elected leaders. So I'm not sure that that is necessarily a compliment. But my view is that within the Middle East, there's far more respect for a tough leader like President Trump than there is for other leaders that are, say, perhaps more diplomatic in how they operate.
And Mark, it strikes me, I don't know if it does you as well, we had an historic first half of 2020 with the pandemic and all going on. We almost forget about Soleimani. I mean, that was a very big event that you came on more than once and talked to us about. And we thought that there was going to be all sorts of reprisals for the U.S. action there. And yet I'm not sure there have been.
No, and I think the same thing could be said about the withdrawal from Syria, that the world was going to fall apart if the U.S. troops pulled out. In fact, that area of northern Syria, which is occupied for the most part by the Turks and the Russians now, is far more placid. So I think than it was when we were there. So I think, by and large, the president's view that, on one hand, getting out of foreign wars, and number two, swift action for those that kill American personnel and American soldiers seems to be quite effective. Now, I would also say that over the weekend, there continue to be strikes by Iranian Popular Mobilization Forces because along with killing Soleimani, we also killed the head of their PMF, Mohandas. So that hasn't got away. It's a small war that continues on, but just under the surface right now.
Yeah, well, Iran certainly doesn't go away. It hasn't certainly in my lifetime. I think that's fair to say. Many thanks. Really appreciate having you with us, Mark. That is retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett. And we have breaking news right now. New Jersey virus transmission is at the rate of 1.03. That's the highest in 10 weeks, as we know. That magic number of 1, you don't want to get above that. So that is breaking news at the moment. Coming up here, jobs numbers came in better than expected again last Thursday. We talked with former Secretary of Labor Hilda Solis, who served under President Obama and is now an official in Los Angeles. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Coronavirus proved that every aspect of our lives, from business to health, is connected to Asia.
Healthcare firms testing the appetite for IPOs in Hong Kong too.
But you already knew that.
COVID-19 certainly had an impact on this.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern.
What does that mean for Asia if the dollar remains on the back foot for the foreseeable future?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
The doors are opening.
When is that moment out in the distant future?
Some things will be as they were, others forever changed.
The restaurant industry will never be the same.
Follow every new development here on Bloomberg Radio.
What do we need in terms of maybe the new school of economic thought?
Because the next best thing to magic is insight.
It may take nearly a decade for the U.S. economy to recover.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba, please be done. Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Decisions. Clearing. Isn't it great? So much choice. But hey, listening to me on your desktop isn't getting anything done. You need to take this Monday evening by the scruff of the neck. Take this sunshine as an omen and carve your path to success, which begins just down the road in Southampton at Solent University. After 3 years here, you don't just get a degree. You get a ton of support, real-world experience and connections, and interview fuel. That's why we're in the top 25 for student satisfaction in the Complete University Guide. At Solent University, we're ready for the future. Apply now at solent.ac.uk/clearing.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
In line with government guidelines, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport. At Asda, you can get a 4-pack of Prima disposable face coverings for £2.80, or a 2-pack of washable face coverings from £2.50. Asda, we're all in this together. Selected stores subject to availability.
I was offered one.
I was offered one. Were you?
Yeah, I was offered one too.
1 2 1 2. I was offered one.
I was offered one.
Don't take our word for it. 9 out of 10 people said they were offered a great value deal with O2. Get yours today, in-store, online, or by phone.
I was offered one too. O2 Retail Exit Survey 309 of 348 agreed with the statement. O2 offered me a great value deal. For full verification, see o2.co.uk/terms.
London. Toolstation are here to help get your job safely started and finished. With over 60 branches within the M25. All open with social distancing and contactless click and collect from 5 minutes. And with 20,000 top trade quality products to choose from. Order online now for collection in London branches and get £5 off when you spend over £30 with the code LON530. So, get your job started at toolstation.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Today at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters. I'm Charlie Pellet. The rally continues. Back to work Monday with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all jumping. Technology shares pushing NASDAQ to a record. S&P on track for its 5th straight increase as Amazon shares reach $3,000 for the first time. Also, Tesla extending a 5-day rally to almost 40%. Here's where we stand. S&P up 41, now at 3171. That's a gain of 1.3%. The Dow is surging 325 points, up by 1.4%. NASDAQ up 202, up by 2%. 10-year is down 630 seconds with a yield of 0.69%. We've got gold up 0.4%, 17.83 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.2%, 40.56 a barrel. Recapping, S&P up 40, up 1.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio. I'm David Weston. The U.S. created another 4.8 million new jobs last month, better than expected, but still leaving many, many millions out of work. Hilda Solis served as President Obama's Secretary of Labor. She is now on the L.A. Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. So, Madam Secretary, thank you so much for joining us. You were responsible for these numbers. You looked at them every month. What did you make out of the numbers we got last Thursday?
Oh, my goodness. These are incredibly high numbers. And for different
underrepresented groups, it's even higher. When I was Secretary of Labor 2010, I think the highest rate that we saw was about 10%, and in subgroups like Latinos, for example, it went up to 13%. But now for where I'm at in LA County, we have over 600,000 people that have applied for unemployment benefits, and our unemployment rate right now in California is 15.9. So even though nationally it's 11.1 as of June, that doesn't really tell you or depict what's happening here in states like California. And for the Latino population, because we have a majority here in the state, it's 18.9%, 1 in 5 that are unemployed, Latinos. So it is very devastating, and it's unfortunate that this president really hasn't provided the amount of funding necessary to help lift up people that can't get a job, won't be able to go back to work because their jobs won't come back, but also investing in the future workforce. So that means education, training dollars, and helping to beef up new industries, especially in healthcare, where we're finding that we have a dramatic need to get more people in healthcare.
Well, as you say, the Latino and the African American community have been particularly hard hit. By the way, Native Americans have as well, if you look at it. Very disproportionately hit, both by the disease itself and the economic impact from the shutdown as a practical matter. But what can we do? I mean, is it writing checks? Is that what needs to be done? I mean, what can we do to help them?
I think we do need to have another so-called stimulus or CARES Act funding that I think is stuck right now in the Senate. We need to make sure that county governments and city, local municipalities get the funding, because that's where the immediate safety net is. And we have punctured holes in our safety net. We are not getting enough money for testing and also to hire up. We can put people back to work, by the way, through programs that I know the Department of Labor could oversee, and that is getting people to become tracers. And it's not a hard job to do. They're like census takers, but you can train people to do that. And right now we don't have the ability or the number capacity to be able to do the tracing to make sure we can identify where the epidemic is spreading the most and how we can attack it in a tangible manner. So I think there's a lot of things we can do. That in addition to making sure that we do another reissuance of PPP, and that is for small businesses. I would say those that have 100 or less, or even 50 or less. And there are, of course, many people that I know here in Los Angeles County did not receive any unemployment benefits or any PPE as well.
I'm so glad you raised the testing and tracing, because it absolutely is critical. Everyone seems to agree on that. Every public health official who knows what they're talking about says that's critical. But there are reports that we've seen that suggest that in the Hispanic community there's a particular issue, a lack of willingness to test and quarantine, because a lot of these people don't have the safety net. They have jobs that require them to go to work. What could the government, federal, state, local, do to address that particular problem? Because it's understandable, if they have to make money to put bread on the table, then they're going to be reluctant to get tested because they might have to quarantine.
Well, I think that, first of all, they are our essential workers. They're the ones, through no fault of their own, have to go out every day. Otherwise, there will not be any funding to provide meals for their families. And that's what's at stake here, because if those people continue to be exposed to the virus, and some are, many of them are asymptomatic, they go and they visit their relatives, or say they have two mixed families living in one quarter. That just exacerbates the problem. And it isn't just Latinos, but it's also other immigrant and people who are living beneath the poverty level. So I think that the government has to do more. They need to extend, I believe, some type of rent relief. There's also that. Maybe that is something that can happen, providing them with rent relief so that they don't have to get saddled with having to keep paying all these costs and feeling that they're threatened if they don't pay, because they'll be now out on the street. And that's going to be another epidemic that we're going to find ourselves in unless we do something immediately. So I know that here in the county, we've created grant assistance programs for employers, starting from $10,000 and think up and up. We've also created a resiliency program for people that are out of work, and those could be individuals that you're talking about that we could provide anywhere from, I would say, $800 per household for at least a given amount of time, at least for the next 3 or 4 months.
Secretary Solis, I mean, you obviously know know the jobs market, the labor market terribly well, but you're also, as you suggest, on the front lines right now in Los Angeles. What's going on in Southern California? Why do we have the number of cases rising? Did the restrictions get lifted too soon? Are people not complying? What's the problem?
It's both. It's both. We did very well in April. I think we brought the curve down, but I think that we may have opened too soon, and it really exacerbated itself during the Memorial Weekend. People went out to the beaches, people went to bars, people went to clubs, people were associated in confined places. They went to restaurants where they were indoors, and now we've had to peel that back, right? So the governor here has just released his notice last week, and we've had to also follow along that order. Now, other counties in California aren't as stringent, but we're saying no. You have to wear a mask. You have to make sure that you keep your distance, and that we're not ready to open everything up. And we know that that's going to be a hit on the economy, but for God's sake, we know that. But there's other mechanisms that the federal government can take on by alleviating and providing assistance to our state government and our local government so we don't lose more jobs.
Very eloquent. Thank you so much. Really great to have you with us. This is Hilda Solis from the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. Coming up, the Equal Rights Amendment has been waiting for ratification for almost 50 years now. Linda Coberly of Winston & Strawn says it's already been ratified and should be part of the U.S. Constitution now. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. U.S. stocks are climbing, with tech companies leading the way. Amazon shares reached $3,000 for the first time today, and Tesla is extending its 5-day rally to almost 40%. Uber is buying food delivery service Postmates in a $2.6 billion all-stock deal. Uber plans to merge the company with its Uber Eats division. Dominion Energy is selling most of its natural gas assets to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway in a deal worth nearly $10 billion. And the Federal Reserve's Main Street lending program is fully up and running. The Fed will now start buying 95% of each loan made under the program, aimed at supporting small and mid-sized businesses. On Wall Street, the Dow is up 340 points, S&P up 44, tech-heavy NASDAQ up 226 points. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg Terminal. The buy side and the sell side together, collaborating across markets and countries in real time, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network of over 325,000 financial professionals that helps power global markets. Isn't it time you join them? Request a demo at Bloomberg.com/professional.
If trying to figure out the future of your business is keeping you...
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rocked that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
Get ready for the University of Bedfordshire. We've got all you need to make ambition become reality, to make lifelong friendships, to make contacts in your chosen industry, to make a name for yourself, to make it. In fact, we've got everything except your application. So get it in, sit back and relax. Wait, actually, check out our generous scholarships and bursaries for support at every step at beds.ac.uk. Okay, now you can relax.
We've got some of your faves waiting for you on Just Eat. KFC, Burger King and Subway. Spend as much or as little as you like. No minimum spend here. We'll always deliver like a G. I mean, I would know. I'm pretty G myself, thank you very much.
Hear somebody say, Just Eat.
T's and C's apply. Selected stores and locations.
Honda. We're not a car company. We're more of a listening company. And now our ears have brought our attention to where people feel most comfortable. The lounge. So we asked ourselves, what could Honda do to innovate in this space? Well, how about more space? Calm and uncluttered, with modern yet retro styling, and built-in screens compatible with your games console. It's the most comfortable lounge you've ever driven. Introducing the new Honda E, our small electric city car. Honda. The power of dreams.
You always say the best thing you ever did was join up. I bet you don't get the same experiences in Civvy Street. Remember those amazing deployments we had? And that feeling of pride. We'd love to have you back. Go on. Feel the pride again. Search RAF Rejoin Us.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Where do hockey and pop culture coexist?
So let me get this straight. You would be able to name more people nostalgically than currently? This doesn't...
Come on.
You're
crazy, I know.
Other podcast Puck Soup NHL analyst Greg Wyshynski, Sean McAdoo, and Ryan Lambert chase the conversational biscuit up and down the ice, skating between serious discussion on what's happening in pro hockey to irreverent opinions on movies, fast food, and life in general. Search Puck Soup on TuneIn to listen.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
Staying current on college hoops starts here. On the Eye on College Basketball podcast, CBS sports columnists Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander bring you commentary, insider information, and statistical analysis covering the entire NCAA.
The amount of earning potential you could have had there, or if you had gone to play at any other place with a chance to play in the NCAA tournament, win a national championship, none of us would have faulted Cunningham for doing that, but he decided this is where he wants to be in the face of a postseason.
Search Eye on College Basketball on TuneIn to listen.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Balance of Power with David Weston.
Coming up on Balance of Power, a constitutional amendment almost 50 years in the making. Linda Coberly of Winston & Strawn is here to talk about whether the Equal Rights Amendment has already been ratified. But first, let's get a market check with Charlie Pellet.
Higher across the board, David Weston back to work Monday after a long holiday weekend. Stocks are surging. Technology shares, the standout, pushing NASDAQ to a record. Dollar fell for a fifth day. Treasuries dipped. S&P on track for its fifth straight increase as Amazon shares rallied beyond $3,000 for the first time. Also, Tesla is extending a five-day rally to almost 40%. Uber Technologies surged after the company agreed to buy Postmates in a $2.65 billion deal. Uber shares, they're rallying 6.1% on the news. Crosstown rival in San Francisco, Lyft, it is up by 4.3%. No deal with Grubhub. Its shares up now by 2.9%. Here's where equity markets stand. S&P up 363. That is a gain of 1.4%. S&P up 45, up 1.4%. Again, the Dow up 365. NASDAQ up 218, up 2.1%. 10 years down 7/30 seconds with a yield of 0.69%. Gold up 0.5%, 17.84 the ounce. Sam West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 0.2% at $40.71 a barrel on West Texas Intermediate crude. So an up day across the board for both the Dow and the S&P. And again, NASDAQ recapping, trading at a record. JP Morgan Chase has passed Morgan Stanley to take the top spot for equity underwriting in the first half of the year and kept its #1 ranking for U.S. corporate debt as companies rush to stockpile cash heading into the pandemic. JP Morgan Chase shares, they're advancing today up by 1.6%. Recapping, S&P up 45, a gain of 1.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much to Charlie Pellet. The Equal Rights Amendment forbidding discrimination on the basis of sex was passed by Congress in 1972. And since then, there have been almost 50 straight years of wrangling to get the required 3/4 of the states to ratify it. But lawsuits are now pending against the Archivist of the United States, claiming that a sufficient number of states have now already ratified the amendment and that it should be published as part of a revised constitution. Linda Koberly, Winston & Strawn managing partner for its Chicago office, has filed an amicus brief in support, and we welcome her now. So welcome, Linda. Great to have you with us. Take us through, for those of us who don't remember all those 50 years, exactly what happened, because they passed it through Congress, and they got some of the ratification. They didn't get all the way, and then Congress put a limit, did it, on how long states could take?
Yes, good to be with you. Back in 1972, when Congress passed the ERA with a wide bipartisan majorities, it imposed a 7-year time limit on the ratification of the amendment. That 7-year limit was extended in 1978, and it expired in 1982 at a time when only 35 states had ratified. But there's some important things about that time limit that are now at issue in the lawsuit.
So they had a time limit. Is there any question that it was constitutional for Congress to put a time limit on to begin with?
Well, that is not clear, actually, and that's because of the kind of time limit this is. The process for amending the Constitution is described in Article 5 of the Constitution itself, and it doesn't say anything about time limits. And for the first more than a century of our nation's history, there were no time limits put on amendments. Beginning in the early part of the 20th century with the Prohibition Amendment, actually, Congress began putting a time limit on proposed amendments. And originally it proposed those time limits in the amendment itself so that the states would be voting on it. What Congress did in the 60s and 70s is it moved the time limit into the introductory clause that Congress voted on, but the states do not vote on. And the argument in the lawsuits is that kind of time limit can't be effective to override the terms of Article 5 and govern when an amendment becomes valid.
So there's a question potentially of whether that was an effective time limit. There's also a question of whether Congress might change its mind again and say, let's extend the time period. But beyond that, was there ever a moment in time when you had 3/4 of the states who had all ratified? Because you had some added, you also had some subtracted, didn't you?
Well, yes, but that's a different legal issue. And there's very clear historical precedent saying that once a state ratifies, it can't take that ratification back. A ratification is something that happens at a moment in time. It either happened or it didn't. And although there were a handful of states in the 1970s that tried to go back and undo a prior ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, that kind of undue vote is not valid. And we know that from looking at the historical precedent. In the 14th Amendment, for example, when the 14th Amendment was recognized as part of our Constitution, 2 of the states that had ratified had later tried to go back and undo a ratification. And yet those states were included in the list of states that had ratified the amendment.
So you have at this point what we might call a bad fact. It's not legally binding in any way, shape, or form, but you have Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg now coming out and saying, you know what, I think we should start from scratch. And it's just because there's too much, as some people say, hair on the deal. It's just too complicated. There's too much uncertainty. Let's start from scratch and do it clean. That doesn't help you in your case, does it?
Well, you're right. It's an unfortunate comment. I think she was answering a different kind of question. I think she was talking about a strategic issue, whether she thinks it's a good idea to pursue this path we're on right now, which is to complete the ratification of the amendment that was proposed in 1972. And as an advocate, she was certainly very involved in that back in the 1970s. I don't think she was providing an opinion about an issue that might end up before the Supreme Court, which is whether whether the 1972 Equal Rights Amendment could become part of the Constitution today. So I think she was expressing a view about a question of strategy and advocacy, not a view about a question of law.
So bearing in mind that I probably am the wrong gender to ask this question and may get in trouble, does it make a difference? And let me make it more pointed than that. Did Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as an advocate in the Supreme Court, actually, ironically, make it less important to have the Equal Rights Amendment? Because after all, the Berger Court did say the 14th Amendment does apply to sex. It's a different standard. It's not compelling state interest. But nevertheless, there is constitutional protection based on discrimination on sex, isn't there?
Well, there is some protection, according to the current justices, but there's two problems with that. One is, as you've noted, it's not the same level of protection for discrimination on the basis of sex as the 14th Amendment provides for discrimination on the basis of race or national origin or religion. So it is a different standard, and that's important. And secondly, there are justices who think that even those cases were wrongly decided. Justice Scalia, for example, commented that he pointed out that at the time of the 14th Amendment, people weren't talking at that time about the 14th Amendment providing protection against discrimination on the basis of sex. And as someone who cared a lot about the specific text that people voted on, he was inclined to say that the 14th Amendment provides no protection against discrimination on the basis of sex. And as we know, our president has vowed to put more judges on the bench who are in the Scalia mold. So that is the jurisprudence that Justice Ginsburg was able to secure as an advocate doesn't go far enough. And she would be the first one to tell you that. She still believes and has said so many times that we need an Equal Rights Amendment. And one of the things she points out, I think very poignantly, is even if it were just symbolic, and I believe and I think she believes that it's not just symbolic, but even if it were, it's a pretty important symbol. So that's a reason to make it part of the Constitution, not to throw it away.
And finally, briefly in conclusion, give us a sense of where this litigation stands right now. You're amicus, but is there more than one case coming up?
There are two cases pending right now, brought by different sets of plaintiffs. The case that we filed our brief in is brought by the attorneys general of the last three states to ratify, Virginia, Illinois, and Nevada. The U.S. government has moved to dismiss the lawsuit, and the three states who are the plaintiffs in that case have opposed the motion to dismiss, and that's the context of our amicus briefs. So we expect a decision from the district court on the big questions, including the question of the time limit.
Well, please come back and tell us about it as soon as we get a decision from the district court. It'd be great to hear more on it. That's Linda Coberly of Winston & Strawn. Coming up here, the quest for a vaccine. We talk with the professor of epidemiology, Dr. Matthew Fox of Boston University. That's coming up next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD. HUD.gov/fair housing. That's HUD.gov/fair housing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Economics.
All this doom and gloom.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Here's to you that learned with homeschooling that your kids are smarter than you. Here's to all the self-taught banana bread bakers. And to you that rock that very questionable homemade haircut. Costa is giving £3 to everyone that missed us as much as we missed you. Get your £3 in the Costa app today and enjoy a coffee, cake, or snack on us. Come on, you earned it. Terms and conditions apply. For details, visit costa.co.uk/terms.
Get ready for the University of Bedfordshire. We've got all you need to make ambition become reality, to make lifelong friendships, to make contacts in your chosen industry, to make a name for yourself, to make it. In fact, we've got everything except your application. So get it in, sit back and relax. Wait, actually, check out our generous scholarships and bursaries for support at every step at beds.ac.uk. Okay, now you can relax.
You always say the best thing you ever did was join up. I bet you don't get the same experiences in Civvy Street. Remember those incredible family adventures? And that feeling of being part of something special. We'd love to have you back. Go on. Feel the pride again. Search RAF Rejoiners.
Minions, did you know Sky Broadband Superfast guarantees your speed? No, Stuart, it doesn't guarantee you'll win the game. Or that your video will go viral. Or that you'll match with the love of your life. But Sky Broadband Superfast does guarantee the speed we promised or money back. So reliable, it's minion-proof. Sky, believe in better. Sky Fibre areas only. Speed measured to hub. Must drop below min download speed for 3 consecutive days. 1 month subscription refund. Claim up to twice in min-term after first fortnight. See sky.com.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
This is Mike Golick from ESPN's Golick and Wingo. Every morning, Trey Wingo, my son, and I sit down to discuss all the news.